Okay, so we are live and we are late, going live right now. So my apologies on that. Sarah Jackson is going to be joining us here shortly, and what I have to say is I messed up. We're late, I'm aware, and I messed up my timeline because I'm on the West Coast, and I know we've got a lot of people in the Midwest and on the East Coast. Wardy, good to see you here, brother. Um, so we've got people, not that we're that big a deal, or me, that I am, but we've got people from all over the place watching, and I screwed up the time zone. Actually, luckily, my mom texted me like 5 minutes before we're supposed to start and was like, any minute now? And I was like, no, not any minute, like I still have an hour, as I was editing a podcast we're dropping soon, and so I messed it all up, so my apologies on that. We're going to go live here with Sarah Jackson here in just a few minutes, actually a few seconds. There she is! Sarah Jackson, can you hear me all right?
I can. Can you hear me?
Terrific. I can hear you loud and clear. Jorge, Sarah, perfect. Everyone. Oh, you are Sarah. Carmen, it's good to see you. So I'm super stoked, Sarah. Thank you so much. First of all, first and foremost, thank you for doing this. You didn't have to. You're doing it out of the kindness of your heart, and in my opinion, to help a lot of people. That's the whole point of this. To do some. I think it's therapeutic. Katie, thanks for joining. I think it's therapeutic to talk about these sorts of things, and so
yeah.
I'm super grateful that you're doing it for yourself and then for people that will watch and be helped by it. And that's what the goal has been since I started this whole thing, was to help people. So enough about me and the podcast. We're going to talk about you. We're going to get going. And me and Sarah actually have, sorry, I'm going to check something real quick here. Me and Sarah actually have kind of talked about, we've not rehearsed, but we went over the subjects we're going to cover. I want to start with, if you're comfortable, Sarah, just at the level that you're comfortable with, kind of telling your story. I think the majority of the people here know it, but it would be good for us to have a refresher. And anyone who's joining that doesn't know your story, I would definitely want to be aware. So is that okay if we do that, kind of getting started?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So do you want my life story, or do you want
when you were born, where you were born at?
Right.
Oh, if you watch Trailer Park. Born day. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I guess kind of a little bit of my background stories, just so people understand who I am and where I'm coming from too before this, because there's more to me obviously than Cameron Giovanelli.
Yes, thank you. Sorry to interject. That's going to happen a few times.
No, you're fine. Yeah, you're fine.
That happens. That's something that we see happen in the media so often, is not necessarily the survivor being defined by what happened, but that person, kind of the person that committed the atrocity, getting all this fanfare, and then the people who really matter get lost in the shuffle. So yes, tell us about yourself by all means. That's what we want to hear.
And I also think it kind of sets up how things went down and how certain things were handled. But so I'm one of 3 girls. My family has always been super strict, and when we were younger, we would go to church with my grandparents on the weekend because my mom worked, she was a nurse and she worked evening shift. So we would just stay with my grandparents on the weekend. So I went to that church my whole life. And my parents had actually met at that church. So they had been there and then they were out of it for a little bit. But still, even when they were out of church, we had a very strict family. And I guess sheltered is the word, almost Amish.
Yeah.
So then I went to public school up until 7th grade. And then my grandfather used to work for General Motors, and he was going to quit and become the principal of the Christian school that was attached to Calvary Baptist. So my parents put us in the private school for my 8th grade year. And this was still under the leadership of the previous pastor.
Gotcha.
And then, so we went to that school for 1 year, and then that pastor left. So 9th grade, there was no school since there was no pastor. So I was homeschooled, and we did PACES, which anybody that's done PACES, they're horrendous.
The worst.
So bad. And we had to do the videos.
Raise your hand in the comments if you've done PACES and you hate them. It was interaction on
so bad. And then, so Cameron ended up coming my 9th grade year while I was being homeschooled, and they started reopening the school. So 10th grade, I started back in the Christian school.
Gotcha.
And I was there 10th through graduation. And then after graduation, I did a semester at Golden State Baptist College, and then I came home. And I guess where kind of starts where all of this came into play is even when Cameron came, I was super close to their family because I was their babysitter. At the time when
Right.
they got here, they had one daughter, and then right after getting here, they had their second daughter. So I babysat for them since 10th grade. So I was close to their family, close to Sarah. I go shopping with her, and that's his wife for people who don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I was like always around them. And then 12th grade is when things really started, and there started being communication, and then it turned into a sexual relationship
Okay.
while I was still a minor. So that's kind of, and then when I came out, came forward last year. So
Mhm.
that's kind of what started all of this after 11 years.
So I want to this. We don't have this written down, but I would love to hear. I don't want to ask this amiss, and I don't want it to sound. I don't want it to come off the way that it does generally when someone's disrespecting a survivor. But I do want to ask this question. I'd love to hear your answer, because it's something that we hear all the time, and it's something that my mother and other survivors have dealt with. And that question is, again, I'm not asking this the way that we're used to hearing it, but why now, or why? You know what I mean? You hear that often, like you didn't generally hear it in disparaging terminology, like, well, why did you wait so long to come forward? And because I don't have the personal experience that you have, and my mother has, that other amazing, brave women have, I'd like to hear, if you're comfortable sharing that, what um, what your answer would be to why now. I think we're having some connectivity issues. Can you hear me
Yeah,
okay?
are we good?
Yes, we're good. We're good.
Sorry, it was jumping, so I tried to turn my Wi-Fi off and then I lost you.
Oh no, we're back. We're still here. That's great.
Okay, good.
Did you
So you said, so why now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so basically, and when that's asked in a like caring way, that's
Yeah.
totally an okay question.
Okay.
But then when I get questions like, well, if that really happened, then why did you wait 11 years? Like,
Right.
what took so long? So that's when it rubs me the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, what people don't understand is, I think, the concept of grooming. And when a victim is groomed, it's years of we're like preparing them for
Yeah.
something. And I don't know if like when I was starting to be groomed that Cameron knew this is what I'm gonna do and I'm gonna start working on her.
Right.
Or if that's just how it progressed. But I mean, I do think that there are some that totally groom on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely.
so it's years of being worked into trusting this person and being close to this person.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, it's your pastor. And in the independent fundamental Baptist world, the closest way that I can explain it is you're raised to where they are one step under God.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there was ever a conversation where you sit down with your parents and they're like, you don't question the pastor, you don't question us. But it's understood.
It is.
You
And
just
sometimes
don't.
that conversation does.
So, yeah. And so I feel like you just, I don't know, you don't question. And like anything they do, you just kind of go with because of who they are.
Yeah.
And also, if people knew Cameron before all of this, you
Mm-hmm.
would understand his personality. He's very charismatic.
Right.
He is a people person.
Mm-hmm.
He is, and the pastor that we had in that church before was much older. And it was a very, I don't want to say dry church, but it was a very mellow,
Yeah.
like very quiet and mellow. And Cameron brought in something totally new that the church had never, like lively and
Real radical.
people person. And so people are drawn to him. Like
Yeah.
he's got that energy that you're drawn to. So I think that also went with the grooming. You're just drawn to
Yeah.
this person.
Absolutely.
He was also very young. He was 29 when he came.
Mm.
So I think it was a mental thing of because at the time when I was a minor, it's not like, I mean, this is going to be like an explicit, but it's not like he raped me. He didn't force against my will. At that point, I was willing.
Right.
And so I think it took me a while to get out of that mindset. I mean, it was a couple years of being in that mindset. And then once I came back from college and I started dating, and he and I like really started drifting, and I slowly stopped going to the church.
Mm-hmm.
It was getting harder and harder for me to know my past with him and then see him get up there and preach about adultery,
Right.
preach about pornography, and preach on all these things. And I'm like, dude, I know you and I know your secrets. So it started getting harder and harder, and I just like started to back off. And then I dated this guy for 5 years, and then he and I split. It was a very toxic relationship on both ends. And we ended up splitting, and that's when I got with TJ. And then once I got with him in 2012, finding someone that like genuinely cares about you and
Right.
genuinely loves you, isn't just using you for their secret life.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, and I've used this in my letter to Cameron, like there's that analogy where they say, like two wolves are fighting, and which
Yeah.
one's going to win? It's going to be the one that can feed the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had this scared little Baptist girl who was sheltered, who
Yeah.
was like, I can't tell anyone because I'm so scared of being the one to have to wear a scarlet letter
Mm-hmm.
if I come forward
Yeah.
because everyone's going to take his
That's a
side.
thing.
Yeah. And then there was this other one that's like, I'm learning who I am and I'm growing as a person. And now I found someone that actually loves me, and I like starting getting more confident. And then I feel like the more that one was fed, the less intimidated I was by him.
Yeah.
And then I had my son, and I feel like that was the game changer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there were so many times throughout the years where I struggled, and I would talk to Cameron and I'd ask him, like, was I the only one? And it wasn't out of a jealousy way. It was more so, has this, what I'm feeling, is there someone else out there that's feeling the same thing because of you?
Right.
And he would always say, no, no, you're the only one.
Of course.
So I kind of like put it in my mind, like, okay, well, then I can handle this. Like, I'll get through it. You know, I did it this one time.
Right. It was
But
isolated.
then the more time that went on, go ahead.
Sorry, you're saying it was. He's assuring you over and over that it's an isolated incident. It just happened to you, no one else.
Right. And so it was more like, well, there's no reason for me to say anything because
Yeah.
I can handle it. I wanted to think I could. But then once I became a mom and I realized like the level of being naive was slowly wearing off.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the world and I was learning like this isn't normal. Like in
Right.
no way, shape, or form is this normal. And learning that like a 16-year-old growing up Baptist and a 16-year-old growing up in the world are two totally different people. Like
Yeah.
the level of being sheltered. So like the fact that statute of limitations in most states is 16. I know where I was at 16.
Right.
And growing up that sheltered, like in the world, maybe someone who's been exposed to these things.
Sure.
But I that's where my issues come in with that. But anyway, so when I became a mom, I was like, I kind of clicked that it's not normal. And I owed it to other moms to protect their children. I'm going to protect my son. And I can tell you if someone did this to one of my kids, I'll be in jail before they're in jail.
Same.
So yeah, like it's insane. But I almost felt like this, like I was compelled, not for me, but I know in my gut, and this is strictly in my gut, and I'm not accusing and saying I know more than I do, but I
Right.
think there's more out there.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, we know that he has had affairs that have come forward,
Yeah.
but legally there's nothing that can be done. But I think there's more. And I felt if I don't speak up, who's going to be that other Sarah's voice
Yeah.
to protect them from it further happening? Like it needed to stop. And so I was like, I gotta not worry about this uphill battle I'm about to face, this group of bullies that I'm about to face. And if I have to wear a scarlet letter, then I do. But it was just, I think having my son and becoming a mom and just feeling like I owed it to other moms to get the word out there. This guy is out there and could do the same thing to your kid. So I think that's when that switch happened.
And that's
If that answered it.
I appreciate you sharing that, because that helps bring perspective to it. You know what I mean? It helps people understand how you prioritize. And I know you understand this, but just to reiterate, please, coming to you with that question, like, you already know, but I'm not coming in a silly or even a unkind way to say, well, why did you wait? Because I know you've heard it way too many times.
So many times.
I can only imagine. I've only seen a few of them, so I can imagine there's many more. So I think that just really helps people frame what, you're coming forward and what happened to cause you to believe that now is the right time. And again, from what I've learned and what little research I've done, I wouldn't say there's for any survivor, there's any like a specific age or time. It's just when it becomes right for you, or when when that, I wouldn't say responsibility, maybe that's the right word, but when it kicks in that, like, hey, there's going to be other victims, or there's just, it's the right time. It's, again, to quantify it, I don't think is easy, but everything you said was perfect. That made perfect sense. I want to pause for just a second. I meant to say this at the beginning, and I didn't. But Not Your Mother's Podcast is, we've done a lot of episodes lately where, we've strayed from, cursing and explicit content as much as we can. But due to the nature of what we're talking about tonight, this is going to be explicit. There will be cursing. It's going to happen. So I know I'm coming in late with that information. It's my fault. But I just want you guys to know, again, now that you've heard Sarah's, her story and a little bit of where she's coming from and her why, so to speak, I would hope you understand that, like, if you've got young ears around, this is not necessarily something that we're trying to have them listen to. You're the parent. It's up to you. I won't judge what you have your kids listen to, but this is something that is not really for young ears. Just making sure you guys know. But Sarah, again, thank you so much for coming on and for being willing to do this. I'm grateful. We're all grateful that you've taken the time to do it. So we're going to go through, and again, don't let me keep you from anything you want to say. I know with the connection and us not being in the same room, it'll be easy for me to cut you off, unfortunately, or for you to not get a word in edgewise. So feel free to, just put your hands up and let me know to stop. All right, awesome. So if it's okay, let me jump into a couple questions that we have pinned down, and we'll see where we go from there. But feel free to, again, say anything that comes into your head. That's what I want to hear. Actually, we covered two of these already. I didn't even realize. I just was going off the fly. We already got into the first two, I think. Yeah. So I think we'll get into what's happened recently and what kind of pulled us here. Kind of got us to do this live stream as far as current events, things that we've seen posted, just ridiculous things. We're definitely going to get into that. But I think the one thing I want to ask you about, because I do kind of feel bad because we've covered so much of your story, of course, with your consent, but we haven't really been able to have you on. So I want to kind of cover some of those things and how they affected you and how you felt and what you thought about these different things when they came to light, kind of through a video on the internet or someone tweeted something. I kind of like your reaction to those things because it's very important for us to see your side. So Cameron made a video, gosh, it's been a while ago, when they fled California, I think that's the right term, and moved to Jacksonville, ironically, with the name. And he made a video, him and his wife, and him just kind of declaring his innocence as a Baptist, as an IFB pastor would. Is that something you could speak to? And I'm not trying to be offensive or go too deep, but is that something you could speak to as far as when you saw it, kind of what you thought or what you felt or how that came across to you?
So my initial reaction was super angry. I've said since day one that I look forward to the day, and I know that this isn't for every victim. Everyone handles it differently. I look forward to the day to where I can look him in the eyes again. Because the fact that he is denying it, like I was hearing it through Pastor Shiplet and Pastor Trieber, that he was denying it. But once I heard it, saw a video, that was at that time the closest that I've gotten to being able to look him in the eye. Like, after what you've done, I want you to have to look me in the eye and tell me that I'm a liar. So that was the closest that I've gotten. And when I saw his face and his mannerisms and everything, it was a flood of emotions. But the biggest one was anger because let me shut my front door.
You're fine. So while Sarah's going to shut her front door, I want to thank everyone that's in here. We can't respond to every single comment, but if you guys have questions, I will make a note of those. We'll copy paste and throw them up here. So if you have a question for Sarah, I can't promise we'll answer every question or get to every one. I haven't seen any yet, but if you guys have a question for Sarah, feel free to drop it here in the comments, and we'll do our very best to get to those questions. Again, of course, be kind and courteous with what you have to say, but Sarah, I got to tell you right now, I don't know if you're seeing them, but there is so much love coming in for you here in the comments section. It's been tremendous. This is a live stream, but it will stay here on our page for till the end of time. So you can go back through and look at all the love you're getting when you get a chance or see as it's coming in. But I just want you to know, Sarah, that the community here, everyone just loves you and they're so proud. And so this is all uplifting stuff here in the comments. So I wanted to share that with you.
Right. I just swiped, so now I can see it. I was nervous, but I'm getting more comfortable.
I trust me. When every once in a while someone joins and I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I should be saying that with them in here. So I feel you.
Right. Yeah. One thing I did see was asking how about Cameron's sister, and I want to leave his family out of it. I've had conversations with her, but I don't think that is fair to speak for her.
Okay.
I think if she wants to talk about her feelings, so I just wanted to address that before I forget. So I was angry and seeing him say it, but I also feel like when he said that it didn't happen,
right,
it was very breezed over.
Oh yeah.
It was super fast, and then it went to we're doing great and we love each other and all this stuff.
That part
Sarah sat there.
Was super weird.
Yeah. And I guess where my thing is, if someone were to, so my husband's a police officer and he arrests people on the daily.
Right.
If he were to arrest a female and she accused him of something, the first thing I'm going to do is get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to immediately like shut down and run. And I think that's kind of like goes into another thing that we were talking about, like him fleeing to Florida.
Sure.
If you're walking out of a store and a cop stops you and says, we think you just shoplifted, and you know you didn't shoplift, are you gonna run from the cop?
Right.
Just take off?
Right.
Because that doesn't look awful. No, you're going to answer his questions. And if you know you didn't, and you know that there's consequences that come from that action legally, would you not, let's pull the cameras. Right. Here, you want to search my stuff? Take my stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I would be open to, come on, like, do the investigation. There's nothing here to find. I wouldn't just shut my mouth and run away. So then when he did that, and then he made that video, and it was just breezed over, and I saw Sarah, and there was hurt on her face, but it was also numb. And
yes,
knowing her, I feel like that's also kind of her personality. She's quiet. She's a quiet person. But I feel like it was just very shut down, and that angered me too.
Yeah.
That she was kind of standing behind him and he was speaking for them. And it might have been she wasn't comfortable talking, but just the whole video just made me very mad. And if I was falsely accused, there'd be a lot more that I would have said other than the accusations against me. They're false. They're not real. And then just go on to, we're so happy.
How great my marriage is.
But I 100% think that it was a publicity thing.
Oh, yeah.
Or not a publicity thing, political thing. Because, I mean, we had talked, and I had talked to other people. We knew he was going to be on staff there. And it was just a matter of, you got to say something.
Yep.
And he hadn't addressed anything at that point. So I guess anger is just the main thing. Seeing his face and seeing him say it wasn't true, even without going into detail, just, no, it didn't happen. When he knows what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that just ticked me off. Yeah,
and I like what you're saying, just because I feel like that's coming from a very true place. It's a very that's your visceral reaction. You're not trying to sugarcoat and say, well, I felt like it was interesting. Like, no, I was angry. Like, that was it. That was the prime emotion, was anger. And I can only imagine what that would feel like to see that person again recorded and up. And what I found, I mean, what you're saying, I love what you're saying as far as it being so telling. Like, hey, if you didn't do the thing, and I understand feeling, scared. Anytime I get pulled over by the cops, sorry, TJ, I get scared when I get pulled over.
I do too.
Right. Okay. Good. That's good.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So
no, I hate it.
That initial like fight or flight kind of thought process, but you also have to understand that that's not how it went with him. There was a vetting process, as far as I understand, and there was, a lot of research done. So it wasn't just like snap, spur of the moment thing. It was like you have time to recoup and make your statement and do the right thing. But instead of that,
right,
he just runs. So to me, that was the first telling thing, and there's a lot more things that you're aware of that I may not be, that were very telling. But the other one was he took the video down. I think Tom or Greg Neal posted it on Twitter, and then I went to look for it, and it was gone. And then it was gone from YouTube within, I don't think it was hours, but it was gone pretty quickly. And to me, that was also very like, okay, if you're really, number one, if you're really innocent, that video is weird as hell. Number two, if you're really innocent, why did you take down the video that says you're innocent? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Exactly.
So,
because now if someone were to research, there's nothing from him saying, and even still a year later, and I don't know if you read, he put out a post last week when it had been a year, like his last year and how it's gone, and
what did he say?
The cross that he bore. Oh man. It was like point by point. I just wanted to like go off. Like he was bearing a cross and all this stuff, and that
they're such martyrs.
There was one thing, and I was reading it earlier, and there was one thing at the end that just he's not, he thinks he can speak for his wife, but for both of them, that he's not bitter and angry because the comforter was with him the whole time. You don't get the right to be bitter or angry at me.
No.
I kept your secret for 11 years. And he said something else in there, that it was a situation that they could have never imagined happening. Yes, you could have. We had multiple conversations. Every single time someone was found out, he would call me, so and so was just found out. And it was almost like this thing holding over my head, like scaring me into to not say anything, like manipulating.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I knew every time someone was having to step down, because he would make sure to tell me, so don't tell me you didn't play this scenario in my head. Because also every time that I would, like if I was struggling, because there's multiple times we had conversations when I was struggling with everything. And if I were to reach out to him, if I didn't like if I were to send him a text, hey, can you talk? And we had a code to do if he was safe to talk and if I was safe to talk. And if I would say it needs to be this kind of conversation and I didn't answer right away, I'd get 5 text messages. And like, are you okay? Is everything okay? And I know each time he was panicking, like, what happened? Why else? I mean, it was stress. So the fact that he put that in there, that it was a situation that they could have never imagined. Your wife may not have imagined it, but you knew that it was a huge chance of happening. So that whole article just made me angry. And then I also had heard that Trieber wanted to fight this with Cameron when it first came out, and said, we're going to fight this, don't worry. And that's why they wouldn't accept his resignation.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then Trieber and North Valley could have hired him any lawyer, which you know who it would have been.
Yes.
But they could have hired any lawyer that he wanted. Why did he then turn it down and move to Florida when he could have fought it? Again, if you're falsely accused for something that severe, it's not, oh, so-and-so lied to me once. Why are you going to deny fighting it and run and hide and just keep your mouth closed?
Why tuck your tail and run? And I know we've talked on so many occasions, and you probably, mentioned that to me before, but I did not recall that he kind of turned down representation in a manner of speaking. he said, I don't, it's not. I'm just gonna move. Like that again. An innocent person that doesn't. I'm not saying. Let me be clear. I'm not saying no innocent person has ever done that, but it does not make sense for an innocent person to do that. It makes zero sense. Oh my God. I didn't realize.
I also understand like there are people out there that do get falsely accused. And I
Sure.
understand people's level of skepticism in the beginning,
Mhm.
but what I can't stand is the blind following that refuse to admit that it's even a possibility.
Yep.
So we are taught that all sin is the same. A sin is a
Yep.
sin. So like I was fighting with not fighting, but someone fired me up into writing a post the other day saying, he's a man of God. He would never do that. So are you saying he doesn't sin, or are you saying he's not capable of that sin? Like, who are you to say
Mm-hmm.
what sin he's capable of doing and what sin he's not?
You're not him.
So just because it is horrible does not mean that he's not capable of doing that. And I also truly believe in the fact, like, he always says, like, all his friends have rallied around him. Well, if they're so great, and you always talk about restoring someone. So if you did it, then why are you not admitting it and having your friends rally around you to restore you?
Yep.
But I think it's because then he would be disqualified from the ministry, and that's what he's ridden for years.
Right.
And he'd have to get a real job.
Yep. And a couple things
or
on
a
that.
secular job.
Right. In the secular world, as they call it. A couple things on that, and I like that you spoke to his friends rallying around him. I'm not saying none of them have, but I know one, maybe two people that know him really well and have been very close friends in the past, and we've had personal conversations, and there's zero rallying going on from those friends. So just throwing that out there. Also, I've spoken to it in the past, and again, this is not to, don't get me wrong, please, Sarah or anyone, this is not to say like to excuse anything or make anything okay, but these guys, and I don't know Cameron's, teenage years, young adult, whatever, but most of these guys that have done these things, or just guys that have been in the ministry for forever, they don't know any. I'm not saying, I really think they could find good jobs in like marketing and stuff like that, but they don't know anything else. They're scared to death of something like this happening, because then, like you said, they got to go out and get a real job, and this has been their bread and butter for so long, since they graduated college, most of them. And so trying to go out, like I've had to experience, going out and getting a real job after being a pastor, it's not easy. I started at Walmart, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make it about me, but like Cameron and so many other men who've been accused and or convicted, they're in a mess, because this is all they know. Their books, their sermons, their podcasts, everything, it's all revolving around God and the ministry, and these heinous things that he has done and others have done, they don't necessarily reflect God or the ministry, in my opinion. So it's
well, and I think that also has to do with why Sara may be reacting the way she is, and obviously I can't speak for her, so nobody get angry at me.
Of course.
But I think I know her background, and I know that she was raised independent fundamental Baptist her entire life, and that's all she's known. And if I remember correctly, I don't think she's ever had a job outside of the church. Like I know she cleaned North Valley,
nice.
To help with like her tuition and stuff.
Right.
So she knows no different. And that, to me, now at this point, it may sound cold, is not an excuse.
Nope.
I think ignorance is no excuse, so just not wanting to know. And I think encouraging or supporting him to get away with something like this it makes you just as bad.
Yeah.
But I can see how at first, if someone was confronted with it, that their husband did it, your first thought is like, holy crap, what am I going to do? I have 3 kids that I now need to support.
Yeah.
I don't have a degree that is going to do anything for me because it came from an unaccredited college, which gets me nowhere. It's not recognized. So to find a career in the world, like you're in a bubble when you're raised that way. And to have to step out of that is terrifying.
Incredible.
So yeah, so I think, I do get that there's probably that too. Just the not wanting to know, because then you'd have to face it, and then your whole world is turned upside down. And my heart goes out to her that her world would be turned upside down. But I've reached out to her a couple times, one being the other night, and I even said in the email, I know for a fact if she were to stand up to him and acknowledge, because I've told her there are details that I know that I could tell her that would spark memories. I
Sure.
know for a fact. So if she would just give me that opportunity to talk to her and have the raw, here's exactly what happened, you're not just finding out on a public forum,
Right.
and she would leave, there would be so many people that would rally around her and
Yeah.
support her for standing up to him and not just letting it happen and sticking by his side. So, but then I saw a post that she had put, someone shared her post from Instagram the other night that her husband's so amazing and he's a man of God. And the fact that you're still thinking that, I just, I don't, it's hard to feel sympathy at
Yeah.
that point.
And
Because
whether,
you have a 16-year-old daughter who has 16-year-old friends.
mhm,
So even if he's not the type to do anything to his kids, which
that's
I
about that.
know that I thought I knew him and I obviously don't know him, but I don't think he would do anything to his kids. But they have friends that are coming in the house. So that's
Mm.
terrifying. As a mother, mother to mother, you're not listening, and
Mhm.
it's frustrating.
That's I can't imagine how frustrating that is for you. Like for me, that's frustrating, but I can't imagine as a parent as well. But for you, who's experienced everything that you've gone through, I can't even begin to imagine that how frustrating that is. And just to briefly share, because it matters very little, my perspective on that would be if whether she is sharing, whether she's sharing these things about her husband being so great in actual sincerity, or whether she's doing it as a front, which would possibly be what's happened. That's my opinion. Maybe is that she's just trying to keep a
True.
bold face up. Either way, you're still doing the thing. Motive, whatever your motive is, all of us on the surface, all we know is what we see, and what we see is you're supporting this man who's just, I don't know the right word, just a terrible, terrible piece of human garbage. So I just, whether she's got good intent or not, whether she's just trying to save the bacon or, save her life, whatever she's trying to do, she's still doing the thing. So guilty as charged.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I just,
Go ahead. Sorry, I feel like I'm interrupting you.
no, I was just, it's just frustrating. It's just another level of this thing that just
Mhm.
is frustrating. And you just want to shake someone and say, wake up, listen to me. I know you would, in your heart,
Mhm.
I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
And that's just, I feel helpless.
And I applaud you
So,
for reaching out to her. I think that's very in my opinion, which I'm going to say that probably 100 times tonight. In my opinion, that's very brave, because that could be taken one way or another, or she could twist. They're great. They're master manipulators. So, they have the opportunity to twist that and make it sound however they want it to sound. But you, out of the pureness of your heart, you're saying, "Hey, I'm a mom. You're a mom too. Let's have a conversation." Of course, she's, you know, in my opinion, denying everything by not responding to you, but that's up to her. But I applaud you for the bravery and reaching out and saying, like, hey, I'm trying this one more time, because as things progress and as your children get older and as my children get older, again, I'm not trying to speak for you, but I'm trying to have a sit down with you, even if it's via email. So I applaud you for that. I think that's very brave. Um, and now, kind of getting to, I don't want to go too fast, Sarah, but right now what I've written down next to talk about is kind of the reason why, what sparked us doing this Facebook Live, which was a recent video, website, social media profiles that went up regarding a church a college in Florida. Are you okay with us moving to that, or do you have more to say on what we've been talking about? I don't want to cut you short.
no, that's fine.
Okay, so Wednesday, Tuesday, I don't know, sometime last week, a video surfaced and some information, a website and whatnot surfaced, a Facebook page surfaced, which I thought was funny because it surfaced, then it went down, and now it's back up, according to what I can see on the internet. But it's Cameron Giovanelli and Greg Neal, who we have a lot to say about him as well. His video voyeurism has been interesting, to say the least. But they are starting a college in Florida, and that's kind of what sparked the idea of, hey, we should finally get together, on video and talk about how crazy everything is that's going on with Cameron. You know, with your case again being in process, we're not going to go into great detail, but what detail we are able to share. So, what if it's just anger again? That's fine. We can move on. But what were your thoughts? Which I get. What were your thoughts, kind of when you saw that? I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen the video?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about my brother Andrew. I'm not talking about his parody of it, which is he's got one reaction and one parody. He's in here, by the way, Andrew. Love you. He's got one reaction and one parody, and they are, in my opinion, works of art. Not necessarily good art, but still, just kidding, but still art. So the video itself, as it surfaced, and just kind of, I went back to Cameron's page and saw his public post about the college. I want to say, I feel like a reporter, like throwing a mic. How does it make you feel about something terrible? But like when you see it, when you
Or
think
a
about
therapist.
it, when you kind of
Tell me how you feel.
all right. When you kind of ruminate on what we saw on the internet about these two weirdos, right? Carmen says the creepiest facial expressions ever. Agreed. What kind of comes to mind? What kind of comes to, besides creepy facial expressions? What comes to the surface for you when you see something like that?
So it disgusts me because I was technically still a minor when I went, legally still a minor when I went to college. So you're opening up, you have two people who have now been accused of sexual things, and you're creating this environment where people should feel safe to bring them in. And it makes me cringe.
Yeah.
And I mean, the facial expressions were awful. Like, I mean, it makes your spine tingle. Like, just the two of them together, in all seriousness, like, it grosses me out. But it's terrifying to think that there could be parents that are going to send their kids there in good faith. And I would hope that as a parent, you're doing research with your child about colleges. And I mean, you can Google either one of their names, and the whole first page is their history.
Their rap.
So I would really hope that someone would do that.
Mm-hmm.
But so number one is just terrified for women and children, or women, even guys too. I mean, who knows what they're capable of. Going to a place where you should feel safe and you're going to live, and these people are going to be like, you end up getting close to and feeling comfortable. Because when I went to California, I was terrified going across the country and starting over. Didn't know anyone except for my sister. Absolutely terrifying. So you kind of cling to certain staff members who make you feel at home. And so the fact that they're going to go there and work for that is just, on top of the fact that everything is Golden State in Florida.
Right.
I mean, you have gsbcforme.com, and then you have nfbcforme.com, and I'm like,
come on, guys.
And then did we literally just pull up everything from Golden State and copy it?
It's way easier.
Which So, and it also surprises me that, well, first of all, I think he thinks he's gotten away with it. I truly do. I don't know that he knows that this is still an open investigation. This is not closed. Nope. We don't have an end to this. I still email back and forth with my investigator.
Awesome.
All the time.
Good. So
I don't know if he thinks that this is over, but I would think he would want to stay under the radar. You shut your mouth and you ran across country, and now you're like, hey, look at us. We're going to open up this college. Send us your children. Why are you trying to draw attention to yourself?
Yeah.
I was surprised. I really was. I got a text from Pastor Shiplet with the link letting me know, like, heads up, here's what's going on. And my first thought was it was going to be something that he was going back to Golden State or to North Valley. I mark my words, that's going to happen one day. If for some reason, by some chance, the charges don't go through, or statute of limitations or whatever, he's going to go back there. Because I've heard from members that Treber's already talking him back up.
What?
So,
Are you joking?
yeah. No,
Uh,
because apparently he led a family member's parent to Christ, and
who
he
cares?
from the pulpit he was saying how amazing he is and how he's still doing great things
No.
even through everything.
What?
But I think that's what they do. Yeah. I feel like that's what they do is you get rid of them just to let everything die down, and then you slowly start putting little pieces in there to warm people back up to him, and then he'll be back out there.
Wow.
I think so.
That's unreal. I had no idea that that was going on with Trieber as far as him talking him back up again. And then if we go back, I know I'm going back way over a year maybe now, but like to the original statement from Jack Trieber, which we downloaded and posted a few places. Um, it was cut off. You know, the end where he said his spiel that was politically correct from probably our good friends the Gibbses, and mispronouncing
Yep.
that. But he, after that statement, the audio cuts off and you can see Jack's mouth still moving. And what we were told from people who were at the service was that he was just basically asking for prayer for that family and praising them, if I remember right.
Yep.
So he's
That he,
continuing.
we're gonna keep him in our prayers, and so you said enough to try, and I think they honestly thought that they were gonna shut me up.
Oh
if
yeah,
we get if we get him out of here and we make this general statement, she'll be satisfied and she'll shut up and go away. Well, you done did it to the wrong person because, and I think honestly, I don't think that I would have. I said this in one of, it might have been my post the other day.
mm,
Coming forward is not for the weak. And I
mm,
totally get why people are scared to do it. And I can't honestly tell someone who's going through it that it's going to be easy when you do come forward because it only gets harder. I'm going to be blunt. It really does.
mm.
Especially when you have these bullies
Yep.
and they're attacking you and they're calling you Potiphar's wife and you asked for it and you were after him, or I mean the things that I've been told, and that I owe him a public apology and
What?
I'm gonna have to answer. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to answer to God for this horrible accusation of this man of God, just like awful things.
Yeah.
And it really knocks you down, and every single time you think to yourself like, is it worth it? And I know that that thought is just super fast because I know it is,
Yeah.
but if I if this wasn't true, I can tell you I would have shut my mouth a long time
Yeah.
ago and ran because they don't stop. The articles that they put out,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that I wouldn't have made it this far without the people that I've met because of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like you, your mom, Rachel Peach,
Yeah.
another victim from California.
Yeah.
Like these people that I can talk to who truly understand and have been there, and on my bad days I could message you something like, dude, this was like really bothering me, and you can talk it out with people. And
Yeah.
I think that even though I have been my mind's been blown by some of the nastiness,
Mm-hmm.
I it's also been blown by there's still good in the world, and there are still even independent fundamental Baptist, like I have pastors reaching out to me on
Yeah.
Twitter or Facebook, like, we back you. And that's huge
Awesome.
and that's very encouraging. So while it gets harder, you also find this community of people that are pushing for you, sometimes even louder than you're pushing for yourself. So I don't know where I got off on that rabbit
No, it's
trail,
fine.
but
There were a couple things I wanted to talk to, and the first one I'll come back to, but I just want to kind of bring it up so hopefully I remember it, is the level of secrecy that happens with these things. So it's like, if you were, I mean, everyone's different and we haven't all had the same experience, but my experience back when, there was a Jack Hiles and there was, of thriving at the time, Hiles Anderson College was, you don't look at bad things on the internet about the church. And I want to come back to that. But I love what, and that to me, that plays into how can people still send their kids to a college where if you Google the top two guys, you can see what's wrong with them. Well, they're not Googling because they were told not to, and they're doing what they were told. So just a little tidbit on that. And I'm not trying to come at you with that information. It's more like I'm seeing it in the comments, like, how could they? Well, that's how we were all duped at one time, and people are still being duped.
yeah.
But I love what you brought up as far as you know, if this wasn't true, I would have backed down a long time ago. And I know you're not saying this yourself, but I will say it. The amount of bravery that it takes to come forward with something like this, years later, or weeks later, or minutes later, or months, whenever it is, when someone comes forward with some information like this, and whether they're prepared and they know or not about the onslaught that's headed their way, it's still headed their way. And the fact that you've dealt with it also graciously amazes me. But also, I like that you're speaking to it and just saying, like, this isn't for the faint of heart. It's been a battle.
No.
You know, it's been an uphill battle, but it's been a battle, and there's more work to be done. There's a lot of work being done right now, and just I don't know. I want to just applaud you and speak to that and just say, this people don't come forward. You know, you named off several other survivors as well, but people don't just come forward with this for shits and giggles. Pardon my not French. That's not what it is. You know, and again,
Right.
I said it earlier, there are innocent people who have, in some cases, been convicted or have been at least accused of being guilty of something they didn't do in this sphere of criminology. But if you're coming forward as a legitimate victim, you should be supported. And it's just crazy to me that there's so many people who they can't see their way to support. All they can see, they're blinded by the glare of the charisma of the man of God, and that's all they can see is how great he is, and that you never question the man of God, and you never say anything against the man of
Right.
God. It's wild.
And I get that there's people that just you want so badly to only see the good in someone.
Yes.
So if, like I said, if you knew Cameron before and you know his bubbly personality and how people are drawn to him, obviously you don't want to think that someone like that
No.
who has maybe been by your dying family member's bedside or has married you and your husband, or I mean he's done good things. I'm not saying that he has always been in every single action an evil person.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that would be a lie. But I get that there's people that want to see that side of Cameron and be like, how is that even possible? So no, she's lying. She's got to be lying. But like I said in that thing the other day, you can claim to know someone. Like his wife truly believes she knows him.
Yeah.
His children think they know him.
Mhm.
The church and all of our members thought we knew him. I thought I knew him until he started slowly working me.
Mhm.
So you don't know any other person on the face of the earth like you know yourself. And like for those that do believe in God that are watching, that God knows you. You're
Yeah.
him and God are the only two people that know what he's thinking, what he's doing. I know the pockets of time that he was able to slip things in and do
Sure.
different things. So the people that say, well, we know him, well, were you with him when he was doing XYZ with me?
Right.
No, no one was tied to his side
Mhm. It's just you.
walking around. Exactly. And I mean, even I remember there was one time, I mean, I don't want to give like too many details, but there was one time that I was up in the prayer study with him and the door was locked.
Mhm.
And my youth pastor came knocking on the door because he was looking for me and didn't know he was, I think that's when he was starting to suspect things.
Mhm.
And he said, Preacher, are you in there? And he said, Yeah, I'm in here praying because it was a Wednesday night. So, and he had me hide in the closet.
What?
So there was like a closet in the corner. Yeah. So even the youth pastor who thinks he knows him and then takes it at face value, oh,
Yep.
he's in there, he's preparing for tonight's service.
Sure.
No, he's not. He's in there with a teenager.
Yeah.
So I get there's people that you just want to trust that, you know, that everyone is truly wholeheartedly good. But
Right.
like I said before, you can't say that he's capable of this sin and not this sin.
Yes. Exactly.
So you don't know someone. So
Well,
that's
there's a
that part.
there's a parallel to be drawn there between Cameron and I'm not trying to get us off subject, but between Cameron and Jack Scott. So again, Jack was taking this girl that he was with across state lines and whatnot, but he took her to this cabin in the middle of nowhere in Michigan, I think on his dad's property, if I remember right. And he had a staff member who was, again, same thing, just believed everything good. And if I remember the story correctly, he and this girl, this teenage girl, were alone in this cabin, and it was okay. And then the staff member checked in and said, "Hey, want to make sure everything's okay. I'm going to come pick her up and take her home tonight. And Jack says, oh, she's having a bad day. I think he said something about her cycle, and then said she doesn't feel well. She's going to sleep on the couch, and I'm going to sleep in the bed. And this is not to be unkind at all to the staff member, but the staff member said, okay, like, believed him. Are you kidding me? But that goes back to your point that you're making, is we want to, especially because these guys are so charismatic, we want to believe everything good about them. And I don't blame people for that. And I'm not trying to get at you for that, because you make an excellent point. We want to believe it so bad that sometimes we're blinded to, hey, wake up. This isn't right. Something's not right here. Victor's door should have a window, and there shouldn't be girls in there all the time. Jack Scott shouldn't be able to abscond, if that's the right way to say it, to a different state by himself with a teenage girl. Cameron shouldn't be able to get around these things and do the things that he's doing completely unchecked. But we recorded a podcast earlier today, and I was talking to our guest about it. It's just, you want to believe all these things that are good, but these guys have so much autonomy. It is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, even his wife, who thinks that she knows him. I mean, I'd go over there to babysit for them on the weekends for them to go out to dinner.
Right.
And the kids are on the couch watching a movie. Sarah's upstairs getting ready, and Cameron's downstairs with me doing stuff.
What?
So even his wife thinks that she knows him enough to know, well, he's just downstairs. I'll be down in a second. I'm finishing putting my earrings in. You don't know someone. And one of the other things that you and I had talked about was like parents having this open conversation with their children and stuff. Like, it's okay to ask questions, and it is okay to be cautious. Like, I would rather get on my child's nerves by asking questions and having open communication and making sure that they're comfortable in talking to me and things. So that way, and there's a chance, and I do a lot of what ifs, like, if certain situations back then would have been different, would I have felt comfortable talking to my parents?
Right.
Or when my youth pastor called us the day that Cameron was going to take my virginity, and he asked, is anything going on? Would I have, if he would have in private asked me again, Sarah, I really need you to tell me, is anything going on? Would I have said more? And I mean, you can't go back and change it, but if there's one thing that I can stress to parents as being the child in the situation, have the talks. It should not be a taboo subject of the fact that we know our pastor, but we don't know our pastor. And even if he, who we love and respect and is leading us, even if he does something inappropriate to you, say something to me, to your dad, to anyone, whoever's closest. So I just wish that it wouldn't be such a taboo subject to where you're scared to say something because you're going to rock the boat or, upset them because you're talking about someone that they love and respect. I mean, my grandmother was Cameron's secretary, and a lot of it happened in the office too, when she's right there. And I mean, he was smooth, and there was ways that we would get around it, but like you can pull the wool over anyone's eyes and just have more conversation. And I mean, I can't stress that enough.
Well, I like that you brought it up because and we talking about it previously, but I like that you brought it up, and I don't want to stray from that subject for a while. I'd like us to go back and forth on that a little bit, because again, we're not coming from the exact same place, but I love what you're saying, and I want to expand on it a little bit, because like you said, the taboo, you said that word a couple times. There's a lot of problems here, but the one I'd like to briefly unpack is that we've made sex and sexuality so taboo that I posted something the other day about when I was a kid. Anytime a scene on a movie came on when a girl had a bikini or whatever, mom runs in front of the TV. I love my mom to death. I'm not trying to be mean to her, but every little thing that was remotely close to sex and sexuality was it was taboo, but it was even a step further. It wasn't just taboo, it was nothing. Like, we don't talk about it, we don't bring it up. And I'm not saying to take your 5-year-old and show them pornography and be like, this is how it works. It's a terrible idea. I'm saying at the right age, you know your kids better than anyone does. at the right age,
Right.
when you see some signs or when you realize now is the time, man, educate them. And again, I'm not trying to get weird and crazy with it. I watched our viewers drop when I said the pornography thing. I'm not trying to get crazy with it, but at the same time, if you're not taking the time to have those conversations with your kids, and again, to be fair, if you're IFB, you don't know to have those conversations. My parents tried.
No.
My mom actually tried to have the conversation with me. It was very awkward. I got very little from it. It wasn't really helpful. So they don't. I think a lot of times they don't even know what to say. But for those of us that are here and watching and can spread the word or have children of our own, like, take the time to educate your kids. There's a lot of resources that are free. There's a lot of, I mean, therapy's not free, but it's super helpful. Our daughter Chloe's in therapy right now. There's so many things, so many resources for you to help you make that less awkward, less taboo, less, I don't know, painful maybe even for some people to talk about it with your kids. But the more we sensationalize it, maybe would not be the right word, but just make it so taboo and so like, oh, well, we don't talk about that. Again, meet it out with reality. You don't have to go crazy, but your kids need to know, because there's things, again, and you've experienced it, and many of the people we've talked to who are not on this podcast have experienced it. You don't even know what's going on until it is already happened. I'm not trying to be accusatory or say you specifically, but many people, many children, teenagers, young adults don't even know what's going on until it's already happened. And even then, they don't fully understand what just happened. Why? Because mom and dad know, not to fault them, but mom and dad or no one ever sat down with them and said, look, this is birds and this is bees and this is how it works and this is what you need to watch out for. It's not just easy stranger danger stuff. There's a lot more, intricate things you need to talk with your kids about. Sorry, go ahead.
So, and I mean, that's another thing. So I know that in public schools, because I went to public school till I was in 7th grade, they have sex ed. Well, because of how sheltered we were and, my family's views, I wasn't allowed to take part in that.
Right.
I had to go sit in the library while everyone was learning about it. So there's things, and I would urge parents too that, and I get, like, I've seen some of the stuff that they're teaching in sex ed, and some things I'm like, oh my God, how can you teach a 6-year-old that much detail?
Yeah.
But if you aren't comfortable with them learning from a teacher and in the classroom setting, then I would urge you, please then have a conversation at home and have some kind of talk, because I can tell you again, like referring back to how a worldly 16-year-old and a sheltered 16-year-old are so different.
Right.
When I had that first kiss with him, I remember my whole body was shaking and I didn't know what I'm doing. Like, and honestly, I don't know that I had even thought about kissing someone before that. Like, it's just when you are taken out of that and you've never really had a conversation of what sex is or the differences or progression of things or what you might be confronted with, you don't know what, like you said, until it's too late.
Yeah.
So when it started happening, it was like, what the heck is going on type thing, because you have no idea and I get, like, even if you're taught about it, you're still not going to know what you're doing when things happen.
Yes.
But at least you have the education behind it to know, I don't know, like how to handle a situation if so and so propositions you for something, or if you feel that they're starting to get a little too close, because it's not like one day I walked in and he said, let's go upstairs and I'm going to teach you how to kiss.
Right.
But if there's a conversation, anybody could, if someone makes you feel like they're getting too close or talks to you about, I mean, the fact that my pastor was asking me if I had ever kissed someone and telling me about his first kiss and stuff, that's a line that should have never been crossed. That should have been the first red flag.
Exactly.
So,
but you didn't.
Again, have those conversations, and it's very important to educate your kids, and however you feel comfortable, but talk and let them hear it from someone other than the person who's teaching them how to do it.
Yeah. I like that, what you said there in the end there, as far as like, let them hear it from, and we're not, again, I like what you're saying is, we're not, saying that you have to send your kids to sex ed. Like, what you do with your kids is your business, but like I love what you're saying, like, don't hold that information from them and don't make one person be the only person that's teaching them about that. As awkward, and I'm not looking forward to that talk with Chloe, as awkward as that's going to be and as weird, it is so much better and so much more of a relief to know that she knows what these body parts are and what this means. I'm not trying to be too graphic. I'm just saying she knows what this means. And if someone is out of line, I think that's the big thing. What I would want my big takeaway for Chloe would be like, she knows if someone is out of line and something's wrong and something's off. It's almost street smarts to an extent. Like, she knows, like, this isn't right. What you're saying, what you're doing, how you're acting, how you're touching me, whatever it is, it's not right. Something's weird. I need to talk to my dad or the principal or whoever.
Exactly.
I like what you're saying as far as don't let one person or and not faulting the teacher, saying there's anything wrong with the teacher teaching, but let them hear it from you too, so they know they can come to you if something is wrong.
Right. Yeah, and that too, like, even if you're okay with your child doing sex ed, still make sure that you've had some kind of conversation to where they don't feel totally awkward talking about something like that. I mean, if you've never had a conversation, I could totally be awkward as a child going to your parent and asking questions. So there should be that level of comfort in a family and like a safe place. So when you're in this house, we can talk about anything and you can ask me whatever question you have, and no question is going to get you into trouble.
Exactly.
You know, if you want to know something, I'd much rather my kid ask me something than go and try and figure it out on their own. And I do think too that when you're raised in a sheltered environment, that the things that you've been held from are, I wouldn't say enticing, but there's that level of like intrigued of like what, so if you are holding this back and like you said, we cover the eyes in the scenes, and I get to a certain age, I'm probably going to be that mom. But at a certain age, like, but I'm also not going to keep them so far from it that they want to figure it out. The level of open communication needs to be there, and the safe space in your home with your children, regardless of what religion you are or what your views are. I might still be more strict than another family, but I still want them to feel comfortable to talk.
And I think there's a lot of power and a lot of excuse me, not control over your children, but control of any kind of situation outside of your home that you gain, that you stand to gain from educating them on this subject. And I honestly, to be fair, I think me and you are tiptoeing pretty well here around using any kind of specifics. I think we're doing a good job, but it's important to, when you do talk to your kids, be specific and do, whether it's from the angle of just, I'm going to teach you about sex, or whether it's from the angle of here's what it's not okay for someone to say or do to you. Whatever angle you choose, it's important that knowledge is imparted to them. And again, not to diminish your public school or your Christian school or private school teachers. Well, I shouldn't say Christian school. I doubt any Christian school teaches sex ed. Applauds to them if they do.
Probably not.
Yeah, but I love that statement that I think both of us are coming here to make in regards to this specific subject is make your kids understand that it's okay for you to come to them, for them to come to you with something in regards to sex and sexuality. Why? Because you've already talked to them about it and let them know this is a safe place. It's okay to bring up where you're not going to get in trouble, but we want to talk about it. I think that's so powerful and so important. I wanted to.
I shouldn't have been learning about it step by step from my pastor. So.
Yeah.
And that's something that could prevent. And I'm not saying that it necessarily would have. Like, again, the what ifs. I could have had those conversations with my family and still be put in that situation. But
far more unlikely.
Let's take every preventative measure we possibly can with our kids, so that way they're not learning as someone is teaching them in an inappropriate way.
Exactly. I love that. I think it's super important, and I think it's something that, especially coming from the IFB or being in the IFB or having that kind of background, like, man, I don't want to bring that up to my kids. Like, again, like I said, I had the conversation with my mom as a teenager, and it was awkward, and I got little to no help from it because, again, I don't fault my mom, although that'd be easy to do. It's because that's what the pastor, that's what Jack Kyles, that's what every instinct told her was, I really can't give him that much information because we're not supposed to talk about it. So, one thing I did want, okay, I want to get back to that because I think that's very important for just a little levity here. John Bannister has officially purchased CameronForMe.com. I don't know if you saw that, but that had me rolling. So I don't know if he or I or Andy will collaborate with putting on there, but I'm sure it will be to many people's delight and to Cameron's chagrin, as well as Greg and Tom Neal and Jack Traber and all those bastards. But anyways, I want to share that. Sorry, taking a little break from the heavy talk. But anyways, I don't know. Just to recap all of that, thank you, Sara, for saying that. I think it's very important. Thank you for bringing that up. I definitely wanted us to talk about that tonight. And thank you for approaching that subject, because even as difficult as it will be to talk to our own children about that, I think it's just very difficult also to bring it up here. It's not I don't know what the right word is. It's not natural for us normally to kind of broach that subject. So thank you for bringing that up. Did you have more to say on that?
But that uncomfortable conversation could save you from a much more uncomfortable conversation. That, because I can tell you, telling my parents for the first time was about everything was extremely uncomfortable. So suck it up and have the uncomfortable conversation, because you could be saving your child from a much worse conversation.
Yep. Absolutely, and that's
not to be too serious.
No, I you know, you make perfect sense. Like that's what I wouldn't, to put it bluntly, it's the lesser of two evils. That's the last thing. No one wants that for their child, to have that happen to them. So one way to help prevent it is to have that conversation, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. Let's see. We had some more things. Did you have more to say on that, Sara? I don't want to cut you short on that.
No, you're good.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I read over your most recent blog, I believe it was, before we jumped on today, not 5 minutes ago. Well, that's impossible. But I did read over it, and I pulled a phrase out of there that I wanted you to kind of, if you're comfortable with, expanding on. So let me read it to you briefly and see if you have. I think it's something that will help a lot of people. So I want us to talk about it a little bit more.
Okay.
Let's see. Can you speak more on the subject of asking God in private to forgive you and then publicly claiming the wrongs you're asking forgiveness for never happened? And I think you already spoke to that a little bit. I love that you went there with your blog. I want to help others make more sense of what you're getting at with that. That wasn't cryptic at all. That made perfect sense. But maybe if you could, and I think you've already expanded on that a little bit, but just expand on that a little bit more and kind of give us your heart and your mind and where you're coming from with that.
So my thought process is kind of, I don't see how it would be. So in order to ask someone for forgiveness, whether it's a person or ask God for forgiveness, there needs to be a certain level of repentance and remorse. Yep. And I think that, so I looked up the definition of remorse, and it was deep regret or guilt for a wrongdoing. So in order to ask for forgiveness and have remorse, there would have to be that acknowledgement that you did something wrong. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to, for the people that have said, like, you don't know his heart, he may have asked God for forgiveness, then why is he still denying it to other people?
Yes.
That means that level of remorse or regret and acknowledgement is not there. Mm-hmm. Also, I feel like when asking someone for forgiveness, if I've wronged you and I ask you for forgiveness, there's sometimes consequences to what you do.
Yes.
And in this situation, there are consequences to what he did legally. So if I'm going to truly be humble and be like, Stuart, like, I'm so sorry I did such and such to offend you, I need to be prepared to face the consequences of what I've done, whether that's ending our friendship or whatever. When you do something, and in order to ask for forgiveness, I think that there would be a completely different attitude that he would be showing.
Yeah.
He would be admitting to it. Mm-hmm. He would be trying to right it. And even if it's a pride thing, which you can't be humble and proud at the same time, but even if it was like a pride thing and I don't want to publicly say yes, I had a sexual relationship with a minor,
Right.
he could reach out to me, he could reach out
Mm-hmm.
to the police,
Yep.
he could reach out to my investigator
Mm-hmm.
and start to face the consequences.
Right.
Like, you don't need to, even though I think he should shout from the mountaintops, yes,
Absolutely.
I did this.
Yeah.
If you can make a public video lying saying that you didn't do it, then you should be making a public video saying, yes, I did do it.
Absolutely.
But even if you don't have the guts to do that, there are other ways that he could be righting this wrong.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think that he has asked for forgiveness. And that was another thing that really rubbed me the wrong way when I read his post about the 1 year thing and him
Right.
saying that he got through it because the comforter was there with him. How can you claim this level of spirituality and communication with God when you know what's there? Like, you know that there's this massive elephant in the room that you're not addressing. So how can you be right with God in this one area when you're denying something else and not making it right? Like, we're supposed to confess all of our sins and
Mm-hmm.
make them right, not just the ones that are convenient. So I don't think that he has asked for forgiveness. He surely hasn't asked for forgiveness from me, which I'm not holding my breath because that'll never happen.
Right.
But no, I don't. For those people that are saying you don't know his heart, you don't know if, no, he would have been handling it differently in other areas if there was that true level of remorse and regret and wanting to right a wrong. So.
Yeah. And let's be real, this guy is no stranger to posting videos on the internet. So if you really want to share your heart, like there, I'm sure he has said more than once, I want to share my heart, and that is on the internet somewhere. So if you're really trying to share your heart, and you're really trying to get to the bottom of things, hey, look, you took the video off where you said you weren't guilty, so it's okay to put one up that says you are guilty because the other one doesn't exist anymore. You can always do that shit.
Right.
So, and again, what you're saying and what I'm hearing is there's no follow-up on the wrongdoing itself, and there's no contrition. Like, I'm not saying he has to make obeisance or a big show of anything, but like the fact that there's zero contrition, and I wouldn't say keep, but on a consistent basis, I'm seeing videos of him pushing, this book from Berean Publications or whatever, and now we have a college we're starting, and it's just full steam ahead from this guy, when in reality, what we're looking for is you to be true and show us some contrition in regards to, again, what you're saying is amazing. Like, you're not even asking for an admission of guilt. You're just saying, can you say you're sorry that you fucked up? That you just can't do it.
Right. And I think that at that point, I mean, if there's one thing that I want from this more than anything, like, if he never sees a day in jail, I'm gonna have to get over that and whatever. But if there's one thing that, if I could have my way, like, if you ask me, like, what do you want from this? Well, I want you away from children and I want you away from women all the time. And I get, like, okay, there's women in the world, you're going to be around them, but like in that level of authority over them. And I want him to have to register because there should be a flag on your name. And that's one thing that if you were asking for forgiveness and you were facing the consequences, that is one of them, that you should have to register as a sex offender.
Yeah.
You did something illegal. There are consequences that you need to now face. End of story. So that's just frustrating.
End of story is right. And also I'll say this. In prison, in men's prison, there are no women, so there's that. But just throwing that out there. I did just have someone ask me to watch my language, so I will apologize for that. It's a habit. I'm trying to be nice one, but I did announce earlier that it's going to happen. We get spirited on here, guys. So speaking to, we're talking about as far as the subject that we just brought up that you were talking about. Is there anything more on that you want to say? Again, the last thing I want to do is cut you off from anything. Any points you want to make?
No, I think that's basically it. Basically, okay. Until he faces the consequences, that he's not truly repentive or asking for forgiveness from anyone.
Yeah. So. I saw something the other day, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It was on social media, and someone posted it was my cousin's in here. What's up, Mike? Someone posted something about a man. He was carrying some kind of protest sign something about women, not necessarily that they were asking for it kind of thing, but it was something ridiculous like that. As far as like he was, you know, whether I don't know if it was rape victims or what the case was exactly, but the point that he was making was that you could dress different or act different, and it would cause this to happen less. And and I know that's not funny, but what I'm going to get to is funny, I promise. What happened to him was a woman assaulted him with a baseball bat, and the comments on that post were hilarious because a bunch of women commented like, "Well, what was he wearing when it happened?" or "He must have been asking for it," kind of thing. And I know I'm probably being a little too jovial, but the what I wanted.
But it's true.
It is true, and what I wanted to get to with that was because of what has happened to you and because of the subject matter that we're talking about here, I'd like to address the whole, again, asking for it rhetoric and how just ridiculous that is. I believe it's still widely taught in IFB circles that, the way you dress, the way you act is also, not also, but is a big part of how you're treated as a woman because your slit was too long or your skirt was too short, your neckline plunged too much, and so look, that's just what's going to happen to you. Again, that is not me, that's the IFB. I want to make that very clear here. But would you take a moment to speak to just how ridiculous that is and how, if I remember correctly, in the instance of what happened to you, that's not even applicable because you were absolutely adhering to all the ridiculous dress codes that were enforced on you.
So that's what totally frustrates me. Just even the other day, I had a woman say, well, she shouldn't have naked pictures on her Facebook. Well,
I'm sorry,
first of all,
I have to interrupt you. What pictures?
Naked pictures.
By the way, that's not allowed on Facebook, people, just so you know.
Yes, that would get you in Facebook jail. So, and that's what I said. I'm like, what naked pictures are we talking about? But the thing that I guess I'm assuming she was referring to is I was a fitness coach last year, and I lost weight after having my son, and
I joined your group.
Posted.
That's a mistake. Clearly. Sorry, go ahead.
And I posted pictures in, sports bra and shorts or like bikini type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to the way that I was raised, that's like a no-no. But then let me say this on the other thing. First of all, there's going to be so many things. I'm just going to go all over the place. But first of all, you cannot compare 30-year-old Sara posting on Facebook fitness picture to 16-year-old Sara, but that's not who I was then. I was very in following all of the rules. I was wearing the shirts that don't come more than 3 fingers below the indent in your neck. The skirt had to be 2 inches below your knee at least. Or if the skirt was longer, the slit could only come up that high. And I can tell you the comments that he would tell me when I was in those clothes were just as bad as me posting in a bikini. I can tell you I haven't gotten anything inappropriate on Facebook when I'm posting a side-by-side of fitness compared to what I was getting from him when I'm wearing skirts to the floor and turtlenecks.
Right.
So
no neck.
Dress has nothing to do with it. Yeah. I truly don't think so.
Thank you.
And I think that obviously we're all human.
Yep.
And I think that we almost expect men in the Baptist faith and other faiths too, but that's the only one I can speak for, to not be, like, let's say you're married. You are not to be attracted to other women. Why not? You can be attracted to another woman that's normal, but have boundaries and self-control. I'm going to be attracted to other men other than my husband, but that doesn't mean I'm going to go jump their bones. Like, there's a level of self-control.
Yes.
So if I were, let's say I would have shown up to the church in a bikini, which, by the way, for people who didn't know me back then, did not happen. I dressed extremely modest and followed all the rules. But if I did, that still would not have given Cameron an excuse to do anything that he did.
Yes.
You then are supposed to be above reproach, get a female to then handle the situation and let them know, when you're here, we don't dress that way or whatever. Like, you don't, they always say, don't be a stumbling block. I get that.
Yeah.
But then that I am not responsible for his lack of self-control. And I think That is what is so frustrating, that you're saying because a man didn't have self-control and they either forced themselves on someone or did this situation and you groom and you sexually abuse or whatever, that's not the female's fault for how she possibly dressed.
Nope.
She is not responsible. Do you need something? Okay.
Oh no, sorry. I want.
Sorry, he's going to work.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I want to interject if I may. I didn't know if you were going to be off for a second, so I jumped in. I just think it is utterly ridiculous that there's this kind of this thought process of these men they're just wild animals, and like what, they can't control themselves. Like, what in the world kind of thought process is that men, especially men in leadership, pastors, youth pastors, assistant pastors, they just, when they see a woman with not enough, with showing, with more than 3 fingers or with the slit too high, like, oh my God, they can't control themselves. That's utterly ridiculous. That's okay. First of all, it's utterly ridiculous. Apparently that's hard to say all of a sudden. It's utterly ridiculous, but also it's either utterly ridiculous, or if it's not ridiculous, you need to be in a straitjacket as a human being. If that's something that's what you go to jail for. That's what you go to an insane asylum for. If you cannot control yourself because someone is showing more skin than you're accustomed to from your wife, your fiance, your girlfriend, whatever, then you need to be locked up. That's a problem.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think that, I mean, even if like I said, if that were to happen, and like for the people that do believe in that level of modesty,
Sure.
okay, I understand, but at the same time, look what happened even with that level of modesty.
Right.
So please tell me how dress affects it. And I'm not saying like for the people that, want to be that modest, oh, well, you should go out and wear a bikini. If you don't want to, you don't need to.
No, do you?
But what I'm saying is that level of modesty is not going to keep away the predators.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants past those clothes or past a barrier or whatever, they're gonna do it,
Yep.
regardless of what you're wearing. So let's stop blaming the women that it's their fault because, and I get like roles can be reversed too. I'm not like totally sexist.
Yes.
But let's not blame the person that it's happening to because they may have had 5 fingers showing. Like that's just, it's just ridiculous to me. Like he could have had self-control. He was the adult in the situation. Yeah. He was the person in authority. Mm-hmm. It should have never gotten to that point. So for people to say that because now 12 years later I posted a fitness picture that somehow it uses his actions is disgusting. Mm-hmm. And it just made me real angry.
Well, it's ludicrous. It's unreal that they would try to kind of marry the two as one and make it like, oh, well, now she's doing this, so that makes it retroactive. Number one, it's not logical at all because, again, what you're posting are before and after pictures to show the work that you've done and what you've accomplished. That's a whole nother, that's, as far as genres go, that's completely different from the other things that these people are clearly looking for on the internet. So I just find it ludicrous at very, very, very best. It's just plain ludicrous. Something that's been used, and I'd like to just briefly touch on it or take more time with it if we want. Did you have more to say on that, though? Again, I'm not trying to cut you short on that subject, Sarah.
Nothing other than the people who are bringing that up and almost acting like I'm just as bad as Cameron because I post that. If you don't like that or that somehow offends you, there's a button on Facebook that says unfriend or even unfollow.
Easy.
My goal in life, like I am a very like, I don't like upsetting people or offending people or whatever.
Same.
But at the same time, I'm no longer living my life at someone else's guidelines. Mm-hmm. So if you don't like that I post something like that, or if it offends you, just hit that button.
There's the door. Like, I don't know.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, good for you. Again, yeah. I find it ridiculous that people like to, and I get it. I don't know. I shouldn't say I get in Facebook fights often. It's a very common thing because I can't keep my mouth shut. It's just too easy. But but when you get into that kind of an
verbal altercation, if you will, online. A lot of people like to go to your profile and then like to pull out like, oh, well, I don't know, you probably didn't see it, but I posted something the other day about, it was these two dogs that were fighting, and Aussie Man Reviews put some audio to it, and he was, it was hilarious, full of cursing. So whoever was upset by that, please don't watch it. You won't like it. I'm not trying to be silly, but it's just true. You won't. But like, it's so funny to see how when you get in this kind of, you can have a civilized conversation on Facebook and make it an argument and still be civilized. But some people want to go to your profile and point out, well, you wore this, oh, your profile picture looks stupid, or whatever, like, oh, you can't spell, you can't whatever. I try to shy away from those tactics because I feel like they're silly, but I know that you have run into, if you'd be willing to speak to it, people that want to say, and I don't think there's any pictures of you smoking, so I don't know why I put that in my notes, but like smoking, drinking, a lack of maybe culottes and turtlenecks they're seeing on your profile, and somehow that's excuse me, a problem for them. I find it really funny that people think that it's okay, like that discredits you. Cursing, drinking, and your apparel somehow discredits what you have to say because that is the lifestyle that you've chosen. It doesn't match up with their lifestyle, so now they need to tell you that, well, you're not really credible. And I've had it happen on the podcast. I actually had John Jenkins watched an episode of the podcast because he was all over it. He's from Grace Baptist College and Church in Gaylord, Michigan. And he basically discredited my podcast because I cursed on it. And I find it really funny. And I'd like you I don't know if you want to speak to that briefly as what you've encountered with people coming across your profile, seeing something that somehow rubs them the wrong way, therefore that discredits you, and how that makes you, what do you think about that? How does it make you feel?
So the first thing that comes to mind is there is a difference between sin and illegal. So
Ooh, I like that.
I do drink, I wear pants,
Sure.
I have used language on my Facebook. Mm-hmm. So like when I first came forward and Tom Neal wrote the article about me and said that my Facebook is horrendous and I've done things and blah, blah, blah. Can you find something on my Facebook? Right. Can you find something on my Facebook that I did illegal? Exactly. There is a huge difference. Yes, I did something that does not line up with your beliefs. That does not mean that it is okay or an excuse or somehow balances out Cameron having a sexual relationship with a minor. These are completely different things. Yep. So me drinking above 21 is legal. Yep. To 90% of the world, it is okay. Mm. And I understand if you don't agree with it or you don't want to drink or whatever, that's fine, but I do. Yeah. And that does not mean that I'm breaking the law. Mm-hmm. So it might be breaking a Baptist law to drink or wear pants or whatever, but you got to know, you have to be able to still separate that just because you're going to my Facebook and you are pulling for something to make me look like this horrible person, that still does not excuse his actions and being a pedophile. Yeah, so there you go. You can be mad at me for all of those things, and that is fine, but that is me. And again, I'm not going to apologize for living my life or the way that I'm doing. It's just, I'm not letting somebody else tell me how to live. So, and the fact that, I mean, even with the comment, the naked pictures, first of all, you had to scroll because I'm 6 months pregnant. So it's been a while since I've been showing my belly. Right. So you were really pulling for something to try and make it look okay. Like, let's not try and, just because I sin does not automatically make everything that comes out of my mouth a lie.
Exactly. You're on the money. There's that. It's funny to me that they try to rationalize and equalize what has happened in your life and make it like, well, again, the whole asking for a thing, but also, well, you're, Carmen, sorry, I had to read it. Carmen says he owns shorts slightly above the knee. So, I mean, you fell in a handbasket, man. There's nothing I could do for you. I wish I could help you, but the Lord sees fit.
I'll pray.
Pray. Sarah's gonna pray. But I think, again, ludicrous is the word that keeps coming to mind, and not the rapper, about the fact that people are looking for, they're just looking so hard to find something wrong with you so they can discredit you. And that really is the IFB way. If we go back and we look back at growing up in that religion, in that cult, going to college, being involved with it for so long, like anytime you can find, a news source or whatever, you can find some way to discredit them, it kind of makes you a big deal in the IFB, because you're able to, Jack Hyles, Jack Scott, whoever, to be able to throw them out. In fact, there's a clip, I don't have it on me, but there's a clip of Jack Scott talking about a local, I think it was him, a news station reaching out to him to, just ask him some questions, and he just lambasted them. They asked him a real basic question, and he just, again, lambasted them is the best word I can use without cursing. And it's just, again, I find it really, really hilarious that the best way to discredit someone is not through a legitimate avenue, but it's rather through, well, they have this picture, or they said this word, and I'm not trying to be mean to the person who called me out for cursing. It's all good and well. But like, they said this word, they had this picture, they drank this alcohol, and so therefore nothing they said is true. Well, that's just not how the world works. I'm sorry, but it's not.
Right. Yeah.
So
no, I agree. And since the very beginning of coming forward and whatever, I am the first one to tell you I will be as transparent as possible. Yeah. I have nothing to hide. Mm-hmm. I do things wrong. I am far from perfect.
We're all flawed.
But that's not the same as being a pedophile. They're on completely different levels, and I'm sorry, you can't compare the two. So if you're looking for things that I do wrong, I will write you a list, but
have TJ write
that is not one of them.
No offense.
So it just floors me that people they're just trying so hard to like find something. Yeah, I do things wrong. So does everybody. And that's what I said in that thing the other day. You find me the most godly, perfect person. Mother Teresa did things wrong.
Yeah.
We're human.
Yeah.
But that doesn't excuse something that he did. So if that's going to be your argument when I'm talking to you about Cameron and what he did, well, then don't waste your breath and don't talk to me, because that should have nothing to do with the conversation.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us back to what you said initially, which was sin and illegalities are not, I think the right term is mutually exclusive. They're not the same. So you may have these legalistic standards that say that, you shouldn't wear culottes above the knee, but no police officer is going to pull you over for that. You might have some standards that say you shouldn't, drink alcohol in your backyard, but no cop, unless you're drunk and disorderly, is going to roll up on your front lawn and be like, hey, you can't do that. Like, no, like there's a big difference. Right. I like what you're saying as far as you use the word wrong a few times. While someone might think something's wrong, that doesn't classify it as illegal. And so that's where you have to, you got to learn. I know it's hard, either being in or coming from the IFB, to draw that line of what's wrong and what's illegal, but it's just, they're not one and the same. It's just not the case.
Right. Yeah.
So
I just feel like that fight that they're trying to fight is null and void. Like, you're just wasting your time, because I never said last year, I am this perfect angel and he is this horrible individual. No, I do things that don't line up with people's beliefs. I'm not perfect, but he did something illegal and he needs to pay for it.
Yeah. That's the long and short of it.
Completely.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I do want to talk about, there's another thing I want to get, and again, don't want to cut you off, don't want to cut you short on anything.
Right.
There's more that you wanted to say on that subject.
You're good.
I wanted to read something because I'm going to mispronounce the name. Devaney, I think, said Charles Spurgeon sinned too. Charles, I think, was famous for cigars, so props to Charles Spurgeon for that. I want to pull some. Okay, so I said, I love that you mentioned that the two of you aren't serving the same God, and I'd like to speak to that more, as it's something that I feel I've personally experienced myself. And I know that's probably a long conversation, and I'm not trying to cut us short take as long as you want. But can you speak to that? I have some things I'd like to say, but you'll probably say them before me, and it'll be more powerful coming from you. So I want to hear what you had to say as far as, you know, the two of you are not serving the same God. Can you expand on that a little bit as well?
So something with that, the reason that I kind of said that is when we talk about like fearing God and you have this level of fear for God or for people that don't believe in it, like whatever it is you believe in, most people have a fear of a higher power.
Yes.
So I say, you know, I do fear God. And I think if we're claiming, Cameron and I are claiming to fear the same God, and he was my pastor and he preached these things, and you're taught to fear God. Well, I think he would be acting differently if he feared the same God that I do, because I still believe that, and to each their own for whoever's listening, but I still believe that there's going to be a day that we answer for the things that we've done, and whether, you know, in this life or the next, but there is a day that you're going to have to answer for things that you've done and wrongs that you've done and people that you've hurt or whatever.
Yes.
So if we're claiming to fear the same God and I'm to believe everything that he preached, that he believes it too, well, then why are you still choosing consciously every single day to wake up and live a lie?
Yeah.
You obviously don't fear him, because you would be scared out of your mind
Mm-hmm.
of what, like, my fear of hiding it and keeping it quiet and it happening to someone else far outweighs. It's hard for me to, I don't like, it's hard for me to kind of like
Sure.
put into words what I'm thinking, but basically I just don't think that we can both claim to have the same respect and love the same God and fear the same God if we are acting completely differently. There would be so many different actions on his part if that were true, because that should outweigh his fear of losing his pride or
Yes.
becoming humble or facing consequences. That should be so much stronger than all of those things. And actions for the last year are showing completely opposite.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's hard to comprehend this person that you were being preached to for so many years and all these different messages and stuff, and they're literally going against what they preach to you.
Right.
And that's kind of like I said earlier, when I started like slowly getting away from the church, is because you're preaching on adultery, you had an affair,
Yeah.
you're preaching on pornography, you did XYZ.
Right.
So it's just, it's almost like he's like not worshiping himself, but like his love of himself outweighs his love of what he claims to believe.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. So like the ideologies that he preaches and the scripture that he uses on a consistent basis, he's not I wouldn't say not necessarily, that's the wrong term, but he's not really going by that. Again, highly hypocritical. He's going by what serves his best interests instead of, you know, hey, this is what God says, so this is the way it should be. That's not where he's at. That's not actually what he's doing. So I feel you there as far as the kind of same God conversation for me. Personally, and again, not on the same scale, but personally dealing with seeing, I absolutely worshiped Jack Scott. I thought he was amazing. I thought he was the man. I wanted my ties to be like him. I even bought a little rack to put in the back of my car to hang my suit jacket on, just like he did. I found the thing.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to be just like him. And so finding out that he was the criminal that he was, kind of that definitely open up my eyes to say something. Again, I'm not trying to compare too much, but something similar as far as how can we, you know, when it all happened, and I was actually out here in California when it happened, like, how can we both be serving the same God? How is that even possible? I'm no angel. I'm not perfect. I'm sat here and drank whiskey, and well, I don't wear shorts like Carmen does, but I'm not not a perfect person. But how can I look at this man and say, well, we serve the same God, but clearly he doesn't care about the consequences of his sin. And like, that's really the only way to equate it is I care about the consequences of my sin, but he doesn't, and we serve the same God. That's the only way to make any sense. And I couldn't make sense of it, and that was the reason for my departure. But like, I'm with you on what you're saying as far as like, it doesn't add up. That how could we possibly serve the same God? And not to put myself, yourself, anyone on a pedestal, but these men have put themselves on incredibly high pedestals, and we're being, just kind of we're under the wheel with them, like we're just being mowed over by them. They do what they want, we do what we think we're supposed to do, and then when we look back, or when the light clicks on, we realize, oh, there's just no way it's the same God. It's just not possible. I don't see how.
Right.
So.
And I totally, I 100% believe that. Like, it's just, like I said in the thing, I think the difference between, because obviously, again, we all do stuff wrong, but like I said, I think the difference between Cameron and I is I do things wrong, and I am willing to be the first one to
Right.
say, yes, I do things that don't line up with whatever.
Yep.
Where he is, look at me, look at me, look at me, I'm this great person, and not willing to admit the elephant in the room. So how can we take you seriously when you're preaching these things or doing these things, and now you're going to be the president of a Bible college, and we're supposed to listen to you, and you're an authority figure, but yet you won't admit to something that is illegal, immoral, disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't, it's just one of those things that are so hard to comprehend. Like, we've listened to this person, just like Jack Scott.
Yeah.
You've listened to this person for so many years, you've almost idolized them, and then they do this stuff, and you're like, everything, like, was my whole life a lie type thing?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
You start to question everything. So, because how can you believe that they're serving the same God and have the same values when you're seeing their secret life?
Yes, exactly.
Mind-boggling.
I couldn't agree with you more. I accidentally put my phone on low power mode, and hopefully it doesn't cut off. I was trying to just hit close on the 20%, but it went to low power. So if it closes out, I'm sorry. We'll come back on for a few more minutes. But so people are leaving some fun comments. I guess at this point, we haven't had too many questions. And Sarah, I don't want to cut you off from anything else you want to say. I'd love for you to kind of leave us with something in parting if you'd like. And I'm not trying to cut this short at all, but if there is, if you guys have any questions, not necessarily for me, you guys hear from me way too much. If you have questions for Sarah, again, being kind with them. If you have questions for Sarah, I'd like you guys to throw them up, and I'll read them and let her answer them. If you have them, please drop them in. But I would like to hear, Sarah, kind of from you at this point. Like, is there, that's how to say this the right way. Is there anything? Well, it's not really difficult. Is there anything like you want to close with, or anything that to use the IFB term in closing? If there's anything you want to I know, River, I need to plug in my phone. Is there anything you want to kind of close with, or anything that not necessarily resolution, because I don't think we're there yet with what's going on, but anything that you want to say or make sure people are aware of, or just something moving forward to kind of hang on to?
I guess just a couple general things. I know that 99% of the people who have now heard about this situation don't know me personally.
Yes.
But if there's one thing that I could hope to portray to people, is I'm not a vindictive person. I'm not a bitter person. I was close to the Giovanellis. There's nothing that they did that I'm trying to backstab them for.
Sure.
And let's say that I was one of those things. Why would I wait 11 years to do it? Why would I not do it right then? Or the fact that they do call me Potiphar's wife. So let's say that was the case and I was chasing Cameron and he denied me. Well, if that hurt my feelings or offended me, why would I wait 11 years when I'm married and have a child to be like, hey, now I'm going to make up this crazy lie about him?
Makes no sense.
What would I be getting from that? I'm not suing him. I'm not trying to get money from him. I'm just trying to protect someone from this happening to them. So if there's one thing that I could portray, yes, I am far from perfect, but I'm not vindictive and I'm not bitter and trying to hurt someone. So it's just a matter of there is right and wrong in the world, regardless of what your religion is. Um, and I'm trying to do the right thing. I can't go back and protect my child self from things that happened. But now, as an adult, I can do everything in my power to protect a child from it happening.
Nice.
So that kind of goes along with, as a parent now, if there's one thing that I could stress is the communication thing that we touched on. Um, so just kind of and wanting to thank the people that don't know me that have taken my word for it really and believed in me and stood by me and backed me, because if it wasn't for the community that and the support that I have received, it far outweighs the nastiness. So it
Oh,
makes those pills easier to swallow. Um, so I can I can promise you I'm not doing this for the wrong reasons. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm just trying to do what's right. And for those that still don't agree with that, well, then you're just going to have to stick along for the ride because I'm not going anywhere. So
good. I love that. I love it. And there again, all the support's coming in. It's great. There was one person, Devaney. I'm trying to see her last comment, but I'm struggling here. It could be the whiskey, but she mentioned that just kind of a little bit of praise for her pastor. I don't know if it was. I don't think it was Pastor Shiflett, but she mentioned that Cameron had been he was supposed to come speak, but when all this broke, her pastor said no, you can't come speak. So I just want to give props for that. I want to read this to you from John Bannister. He said, "Thank you for coming forward. Your stand has helped me be a better father to my daughters. They know your story and you're an inspiration to them." So I don't know if you'll read this later or whenever, but I wanted you to hear that from John Bannister. That's a beautiful thing to say. Yeah, now we're going to be getting, all we're going to be getting is like, I don't think we're going to any questions. They're just going to tell you how great you are, and they're all right. Yeah, I'm not seeing a bunch of questions come in, but
and I do want to add one thing.
yes, please.
So I know that everybody has, are going to have their own opinions and stuff. And I do want to throw out there that what happened to me and the church that I happened at is not it's not Calvary's fault. It's not the members' fault. It was Cameron as a person. It was not Calvary Baptist Church that as a whole
Yes.
did this illegal thing. So I don't want people to hate on the church because that church now, like even visiting, is a completely different atmosphere, and there's cameras literally everywhere, and there's things that you have to do to get certain places. So they've taken they're taking precautions to try and make a change. And I think that is huge. And, for even people that may not like Pastor Shiflett, I can tell you that my interaction with Pastor Shiflett is this man was a complete stranger to me,
Yeah.
picked up the phone and listened to me, and immediately helped me take a stand and is standing up to some of these bullies that are,
Yeah.
being nasty. So I don't want it to be that to come across that I am, complete anti-Baptist. There's still good Baptists in the world.
Sure.
That I am complete anti-Calvary Baptist Church. That is far from the truth. That I am, that I hate on those people. This is Cameron as a person. So I just don't want that to come across that it's the church's fault or the members' fault. I just want to make sure that all stays separate. Like if you don't like Pastor Shiflett for something else, and that's, someone's
That's you.
opinion.
Yeah.
But in this situation, they're separate.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that. Like that means a lot. And I can imagine how much it meant to you in the moment when you're dealing, like you said, with all the bullies and people that don't want to hear what you have to say, people that are, again, sweeping things under the rug as the IFB does. For you to go to a pastor of an, I believe, am I correct? That's an independent fundamental Baptist church. And I'm not saying that in a angry or demeaning way. Like that's an independent fundamental Baptist church. So for you to find support there, I can imagine how that made you feel. It had to be in a beautiful moment.
Yeah. And I see the comment, are they background checking or federally fingerprinting? I'm not sure. I know that, so the thing is Pastor Shiflett has been very open. He just wrote that book, Wolves Amongst Lambs. he was very open. He's been sexually abused twice.
Yes.
So I know that he is trying and his hardest, at least from conversations that I've had. Seems very transparent in the fact that he will literally do whatever he can to keep this from happening to someone under his watch. So I can't speak for, I don't know like all of the things. I just know that there are cameras everywhere, like things that could have prevented my situation back in the day. So that was encouraging to see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Someone did ask, and this is one of those ones that I'm not sure if we're going to talk about or not, so feel free to tell me, like, that's for another time. But someone did ask their ultimate goal to see Cameron go to jail. So again, if that's something that we want to, a subject we want to broach, leave it alone. That's fine. I'm fine with passing on that. But if you'd like to answer it, feel free to if you'd like to.
So I don't think that I have, other than I truly feel that he should have to register as a sex offender, because I think that there needs to be a warning attached to his name after you do something. There are consequences, and I feel like that is a huge one.
Sure.
And I wouldn't say, like, my initial thing in coming forward was I wanted him to get out of a position to do this again. That was my main goal. So my goal now isn't like, oh, I hope you rot in jail.
Right.
Like, I just want him to have to face consequences for doing something illegal. I want him to be prevented from doing something like this again. So it's not a specific, he should spend a year in jail, he should spend 5 years in jail. I don't have like a specific thing like that. I just want it to be made, he to be prevented from being able to do this again as much as humanly possible. So I will keep going until there are some kind of consequences for what he did, and there's some kind of preventative measures taken to where he can't be around children or in a position of authority to have that leadership and intimidation over a woman to even have an affair, which I get there's affairs in the world. I'm not saying that it only happens in churches. But if we could do whatever we can to take away that power that he felt to hurt these women, that's my end goal, if that makes sense. So no, not necessarily jail, just consequences.
So no, that does make sense. So there are some specifics, but there's more of an overarching idea for you of, hey, I just don't want him to be able to hurt anyone like he hurt me. That's kind of the main goal. Am I getting that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. But there would be a specific in the sex offender list, which that's more than, that just makes perfect sense. Like you have a child and you want protection for your child, just like any mother or father would want protection for their own. And so, yeah, that just adds up. It makes sense. I agree with that 100%.
Because if it did come down to we go to court or something, and let's say he's unable to, like, they're unable to put him in jail, if he does have to register, that at least keeps him from being a teacher in a school in the world, or a janitor in a school. Like, there are certain jobs that still would restrict him from being put in a position to have easy access to other children.
Sure.
So.
And honestly, like, that's something that, coming from the background that he comes from, let's say he loses his job, which I hope for, but highly doubt unless Greg does too, there in Florida, in Jacksonville. If he loses his job, then something like a school type atmosphere without any legalities involved, if he were to not have to go to prison or be registered, a school job is actually probably an easy choice for him to go into. So I like what you're saying.
Yeah.
As far as him having to register, that's what makes the most sense.
So someone asking if I have an attorney or if it's just a police investigation. So right now it's just an open investigation. Okay. Once I know for sure what charges will be pressed or like what they're able to, because with there being a statute of limitations and there's so many ins and outs of position of authority and all these things, like there's loopholes and stuff. So once we figure out that, then it will get to the point where, like, if we go to court, I'm 100% hiring an attorney.
Yes.
But at this point, there's really not much one can do until the investigation gets to a point where it's then in the state's attorney's hand and I can get representation. So it just matters really what the next step is. I've spoken to some, but I'm not personally represented yet because we don't have a court date. So that's really as much as I can say about the investigation part.
Well, and I want to thank you for being so forthcoming. Like there's a level of transparency that you're giving us that I'm very grateful for. Not so much for the podcast, all that aside, like just for helping people understand the situation, that it's ongoing, that this isn't the one of the big reasons I wanted to have you on is because we talked about this, gosh, like so long ago. We're so familiar with this happening where there's a bunch of hullabaloo and a bunch of noise, and all of a sudden it kind of dies down and the guy gets away with it. I want people to know this is ongoing. This isn't something that's being swept under the rug. We're here to make noise. You're here to make noise, and not in a silly way. Just you're here to tell people your story, and this isn't going away anytime soon, conviction or not.
Right.
I want to see if there is more questions. Thank you, but Sarah, thank you for answering those questions. That means the community and the people, just letting them know what's going on and just kind of updating them on this podcast. I don't see a whole lot more questions.
I totally agree that there shouldn't be a statute of limitations. If someone's a minor, then if you're telling me that I'm not allowed to smoke because I'm not 18, well then why am I allowed to be okay with someone 12 years older than me having a sexual relationship with? Like if I'm not allowed to make the decision about my body to smoke a cigarette, why I don't that like the age of consent thing and the statute of limitations and all of that, like that whole thing just really bothers me. And I think so many laws need to be changed about that, because it doesn't matter if it's 20 years ago someone committed a crime.
Still a crime.
There's still consequences. It makes it okay because we've waited 20 years. We can hide videotapes until it's no longer allowed to be charges be pressed. I don't agree with that. So
yeah. Good. Well, I thank you for speaking on that. A lot of people need to hear that, and especially from you. It's very powerful coming from you. I don't know. I was talking to someone about that earlier today. Like I don't understand every single legality involved, but just the idea of a statute of limitations when it comes to any sort of crime. I don't mean a parking ticket or something like that. I mean something that legitimately hurt someone else. Why? How? It's beyond my comprehension.
right.
Heather wants to know if you're going to write a book, which I think you should do.
I would love to. So I put off therapy for so long, and you and I even talked about it when I first came forward, and you said I don't want to push you, but I would encourage you, talk to someone.
Yeah.
And I put it off for so long, and almost 2 months ago I started it, and I can tell you it completely changed everything. Just being able to talk out something to someone who's not involved in the situation. So number one, therapy is huge. So if you have anything, I strongly encourage that. It does not make you weak. But another thing that I found therapeutic is writing.
I want to hear all of that, and I want everyone else to hear it, but I'm going to be the dumbass right now and go get my charger. Keep talking, please. But I promise you guys, I'm going to get a new phone tomorrow. I'm not even joking, but my phone is at 5%. If I don't plug it in now, I just want you to know I'm not leaving to leave. I want to hear what you have to say. Yeah. And I can hear it from over there, but I'm going to go grab my charger. Okay. Please continue.
Okay. But so I have found writing therapeutic, and I'm the type of person that it is very difficult for me sometimes to get my thoughts into words, and I find that writing it out or typing it out, I'm able to better compose things. So yes, once I have an idea and firm answer on where we're going with the investigation, because I want to be able to speak freely in the book, yes, I would love to write something. And even if the proceeds go to a sexual abuse something, I'm not trying to make money off of anything. When everything was happening, did you ever almost tell somebody what stopped you? What did you think would have happened? What Cameron would do? There was many times that I so badly wanted to tell people, and I would start to talk to people without. I'll say this: I never wanted to tell anybody that was directly involved because I was so terrified of what people would, like, the scarlet letter is like the first thing that comes to mind. And I was so terrified that if I came forward, somehow it would all be on me, and it wouldn't be looked at from this is like totally wrong point of view. And now looking back, I know that that sounds so dumb, but when you're intimidated for all those years, so there was many times over the years that I was dying inside to just let it out and talk about it. Um, and TJ pretty much knew from when we first started dating. He was like the first person that I was able to really open up to, but it was easier because he wasn't directly involved. I knew that me
Right.
telling him was not hurting him, but I was able to finally tell someone. And I feel like the more that I was able to tell him, the more details and stuff, that also helped give me a level of comfort to be able to tell someone else. And I also was terrified to tell because the fact that my grandparents were so involved, my grandfather was a deacon, my grandmother was the church secretary, they were right there. And I knew that it was going to hurt them too. So that kind of was always something that went through my mind. But yes, I wanted to tell, but was always just too scared.
Trying to get to more questions here, and I just screwed it all up on my laptop. I did want to read this from my cousin, just because, not because he's my cousin, but I do like I like seeing both sides of everything. And Mike says, no expert, but there are a lot of scenarios in which blackmail comes up with no statute of limitation, i.e. people who have forgiven the offense. Suddenly, we're not talking about your situation because that's not the case. Have a problem. They see that you have some success, and now they want you to have. Now they want you and have to figure out how they can blackmail you to kind of get after your success. And I know Michael is not coming after, because clearly Cameron has not seen a lot of success. He'd want us to think that, but that's not the case. So I just want to read that just so that we have both sides of that. We're not saying that every single statute of limitation anywhere at all ever needs to get thrown out, but when it comes to sex crimes, to violent offenders, it just doesn't make sense. And then we're not trying to go against what you're saying, Mike. It makes sense, but just trying to, I wanted to see both sides of there. I'm not saying there's no virtue or value to it. I'm just saying in this instance, it's out the window.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's nothing that I have to gain from Cameron Giovanelli. Like, and someone asked me when I first came forward, like, do you want to sue? And I was like, I don't want his dirty money. There's nothing that I want from that. That's not going to do me any good. I would much rather work hard for my money and just see him have to face the consequence for something that he did. So.
Yeah, exactly. That makes the most sense. I don't see, again, I don't want to cut you off, Sarah. I want to hear everything you have to say. I know it's later than it is here, but I definitely want to keep fostering these questions as they come up. I'm not trying to cut anyone off, but I don't see a whole lot more right now. I'm trying to think what else. There was something else. Yes.
Kind of on this statute of limitations thing, just because I don't have an answer yet, but since coming forward, I've watched people not be able to do certain things because of statute of limitations. Like, I think that was your mom's situation.
Yeah.
Something about statute of limitations.
Yes.
So if there's anyone that has gone through a similar situation and you've yet to speak up, or, you know, not necessarily even someone watching right now, but someone that might watch eventually, even though, like I said earlier, it's an uphill climb and an uphill battle, I can promise you that the earlier you speak up, the better chance you have of getting someone stopped, because there is a chance that statute of limitations may end up screwing me over.
Yeah.
I don't know yet. I don't have an answer. So that's not me like trying to like sneak something in there that I have an answer. I don't. But I think I'm kind of like preparing myself in my mind because I've seen so many people screwed over. But I just would urge someone, find anyone that you are comfortable talking about, even if you don't want to tell anyone that you personally know and you just want to sneak to a police station and tell them.
Yeah.
But because if I wouldn't have come public, nobody would know that there's an open investigation yet. So like Cameron doesn't even apparently know that the investigation is still open.
Clearly.
So talk to someone, because there are sadly, limitations to stuff. And the earlier you speak up, the better chance you have of stopping them.
Yeah.
So, which
Um,
I feel like is everyone's main point of coming forward is to try and stop them. So.
yeah, that's the whole goal here. Um, and Janine, Jay asked, where did it go? How do you not get triggered going to church or being in that environment?
So I do when I go to Calvary.
Mm,
Not in the fact of like I said, it's a completely different environment and the people are wonderful. And like the first time that I went back, there was literally a line of people trying to hug me.
that's awesome.
So not in that, like where I feel like they're looking down on me or I'm being judged, but to be back in that building and watching the pulpit and
Sure.
knowing the study is right there and there's the baptism that I had to cross when I left the study and going in the bathroom, like there's memories literally in every spot of that church.
Imagine.
And I've been a couple times and I've tried going a couple times, and what's hard for me is that's the church that I grew up in, so that was my second home for most of my life. So to go back there, even though things are different, it's still very much the same in the physical building.
Yes.
Like the paint color can change, but the situation still happens. So, and I know that every victim or survivor handles things different, and some get triggered very easy. And I almost feel like in certain ways I'm kind of numb to it, and I never want someone to think that it doesn't bother me. But even though I just came forward last year, I've also been dealing with this for 12 years now.
Yeah.
So I've had time to process things. So you do become a little more numb to certain things. But yes, going back to Calvary, unfortunately, it does. I mean, I love the people there still and whatever, but it's hard to not sit there and think about all those things while I'm trying to just be present.
Right.
It's pretty much impossible.
I can only imagine what that would feel like. And I haven't had that kind of situation, but there are definitely churches that I go to, and it doesn't work out for I can't stick around long. So I can only imagine what that's like for you. I'm trying to see if there's more questions for us. I do want to read what Margaret said. It's sad because most of the times victims don't speak because they are scared. Also, they can be feeling shame. A lot of different layers involved. And I don't know if you want to say anything to that, Sarah, you don't have to. But
No, I totally agree, because even though, like, during the time, so when you're 16 years old, you want to think that you're this 30-year-old person, like you
right.
feel older, you feel like whatever. And in my mind, at that time, I knew what I was doing. And at that time, was so groomed, I truly thought that I loved him.
Yeah.
And he was, the first person that I said I love you to. And I'm sharing all these things with. So there was a huge layer of shame in the fact that, like, I knew what I was doing and I still did it. Like, I'm disgusting and you feel dirty. And I even told him that many times that I felt dirty. So I totally understand the shame. And I think that's also something that I just I don't want to say I grew out of, but I became stronger than the shame
Yep.
to realize, no, you're still a child, Sarah.
Yep.
You were groomed. Grooming is a thing. And I don't want to appear weak, like, oh, he whatever, but he did. Like, that's just, he is a predator. And
Yep.
so I totally get the shame and why people wait so long. And that's what also irritates me when people, well, why did you wait so long? Will you be in that situation?
Right.
Tell me how you're able to handle it. So
Right.
everyone handles it different.
I like that phrase that you said, stronger than the shame. I really love that. That's awesome. It's very, it's very telling as far as like your story and everything you've gone through. I don't want to identify you as that, as you identify yourself however you want, but I like that for you. I think that's terrific. My dad popped in. I always like reading my dad's comments, but my dad popped in and said something about, and he's right. Like, the comparison to you and Potiphar's wife, I understand as far as it not being correct or right or remotely, again, true at all, but she was looked at as a temptress. But even in that situation, nothing happened. So even trying to make that comparison still falls flat because again, what my dad's saying is the presence of God. Like, that's not, you can't equate, even if you want to equate the two, that connection still doesn't quite work,
right?
Because nothing actually happened. So I don't know if I'm going to read that. River said that should be the title of your book, Stronger Than the Shame. You make your own decisions on your book title. It's a good one. Let's see. A lot of comments about sheeple. I'm with that. That makes sense. I keep saying I don't see more questions, but I know you, every time I say that, you think of something else to say, and I want to hear it. So I don't want to cut you off or cut you short. I also don't want to keep you up till 1 a.m. either. But again, I don't see a whole
And honestly, like, I'm still an open book, like, even after, this live ends and we're done. Like, I still am always willing to answer questions as much as I can. Granted, like, it all depends on how I'm being asked. I'm not saying that you have to, like, kiss up to me, but if you come at me with a nasty attitude, like the other day, like, I had a woman, oh, well, if that's the case, then why did you wait? And I was like, I'm not going to answer. I don't owe you an answer. But to people that are genuinely curious about different aspects of it or whatever, I am completely transparent, and I will literally tell you anything that I am allowed to tell you. So I'm not trying to be vague or keep things. So if people have questions, I'll totally still answer.
That's awesome. And I don't want to blow you up if people hit up your personal profile, but if someone asks a question for you to the podcast, I'll try to be the mediator there and send that to you. I'm not saying that you guys go through me. Who cares? But like, if you guys have a question and you're not sure to find Sara or you don't want to blow her up, it's more than fine for you to message us here at the podcast and we'll get that to you. I think Bethany was making a statement. She says, I don't know about you. Every time I speak about my experience, I feel more empowered. For a long time, it felt like my abuser had control, but when I speak the truth about what happens, I feel like I gain a little more control every time. Is that something, Sara, you can kind of identify with?
Yeah, I feel like with like every stage of this whole situation, you get a little bit stronger. Like the day that I walked into Baltimore County Police Station and was able to tell someone to write the report, you gain a level of empowerment. The day that I made the post and was able to publicly say it out there, like this is what happened to me, you feel a little bit more powerful. So absolutely, I truly think that talking and getting out your feelings and your thoughts is huge, a huge part of therapy.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And I'm thrilled. We hadn't talked about this that much prior, but I'm thrilled to know or to find out that you're in therapy, or I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. But that you're in therapy, that you're talking to someone, because that, again, not from the same situation, but I've been doing it for about probably a year and a half, and it's been very, very helpful. So I recommend it to everyone. I was actually met a friend at the store the other day, and they mentioned therapy, and I said I recommend it to everyone. Like every person, you should be in therapy. I'm not saying we're all crazy, but like I think everyone should try therapy.
But it's not. It doesn't make someone weak, and it's not like running for a pill. And I'm not saying pills are bad. I've been on medicine before. But it's not like running for a quick fix. If anything, I feel like therapy is the harder route because you're forced to be vulnerable and open up and discuss what you're feeling and what you're thinking. So, I mean, I've even had some family that unfortunately didn't agree with me going to therapy. Well, nothing good will come from that. Actually, all good things come from that.
Yes.
And it's how you do the therapy. If you put in the work and you try and make a change, like you're talking about some bad things, but it's getting through them. It's finding healthy ways to get through things and work through things. So I am 100% a therapy person.
Awesome. And I would say I would definitely speak to that. A couple things like what you said, like the application is key. You can't. It's not unlike anything else you do. Whether you're aware of, with fitness, but like you've got to have actions behind all the talk and all the ideas. There's that, but also the one thing I did want to say, and I've heard it before, and I got lucky. My first therapist was a good one. But anyone that's thinking about therapy or might be seeking it right now, it's okay to bounce around the first few times to different therapists. You're not always going to find the right one right out the gate. And if you go to 2 or 3 sessions, and it's not so much like they're trying to get you to do something or you're trying to rebel against them, so to speak, to use the IFB terminology. But like if it's just just not jiving, you guys aren't getting along, it's okay to go to a different therapist. Just want to throw that out there because I think it's important to
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it actually working is feeling comfortable and being able to openly to reach that level of vulnerability. So if you're not comfortable with the first person, there's nothing wrong with that. There's thousands of therapists. Keep going.
Yep.
And I can see how it's total. I mean, I was worried about that. Like, well, what about I know me, and I know that if I wouldn't, I got so lucky that I love the first one that I saw, but I know me, and if I wouldn't have, I probably would have been like, oh, I'll get to it. I'll go see another one. But it's very important to find someone that you're comfortable talking to and that you can actually work with to work through.
Yes, absolutely. I just want some of these comments I feel like are empowering and you might want to speak to, so I want to read, even though they're not questions. Heather said, when I speak about my situation at times, I'm so angered that my situation was so easily swept under the rug and covered up. And I'm sure that's an emotion that you've had to deal with. And I haven't personally had to deal with it, but I'm absolutely outraged by your situation and so many others that it was just another day in the life, sweeping another thing under the rug where the person, you, others that this has happened to, didn't really matter about the person. It mattered about making the scandal, so to speak, kind of go away.
Right.
Oh.
It's the sweeping under the rug thing is so frustrating, and I think that was a huge part of why I put it on Facebook is because I just wanted to take another measure to not get it swept under the rug, but I was even not instructed but encouraged not to when I said I was about to hit post. And I remember being in the office, I had everything typed up and I was getting ready to hit post and I was like sick to my stomach and I clicked post and I walked out of the office and I just let it be because unfortunately a lot of things do get swept under the rug and it's almost like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Like what you said isn't important enough to do something about, so we're just gonna act like it didn't happen. And it's very frustrating. But you just have to keep being the squeaky wheel and keep doing something until something changes.
Yes. Jay asked, do you ever feel like those who are shaming you are people who may be projecting their own pain from abuse? The IFB is famous for twisting pseudotherapy within their dogma. Ooh, big words, Janine. I'm not ready for all that. To tell people they will be healed. Seeing you being strong and finding healing outside the IFB may invalidate their years of submission to the IFB, creating the cognitive dissonance that brings them to attack you. So I guess the question there is, do you feel like people who are kind of coming at you or, saying the silly things as far as like, oh, your before and after pics mean that you're a bad person? Like, do you feel like they're projecting it all? Is that something that, due to their own shame? Is that, again, we're not here to condemn anyone, but,
Yeah. No, I could totally see that it's almost like you're like, even with the therapy, like people that put you down for going to therapy, is it because you don't want to face your own demons and your own things? Like, I feel like you're very quick to put someone down for something that maybe you feel like you don't have subconsciously, don't have the strength to do yourself.
Right.
So I can totally see that is a reason for people doing that.
John Bannister said that Anna Jones asked, how can we or people help perpetuate the movement from him having to face justice? I'm not sure I understand that question.
I'm with you. I don't either.
John, can you give us a little? I'm sorry, man. I'm sure I'm just incorrectly reading it, but give me.
Wait, so I need it broken down a little more.
Yes, break it down. Break it down for us, brother. Give me a little more on that. I'm sorry, dude. It may be the whiskey. I don't know, but I'm not quite understanding that question exactly. But that's something that I definitely learned from therapy as far as the projecting. I think that's something that I've dealt with, whether doing it myself personally and just kind of having to come to grips with the fact that, hey, I'm doing this to other people or having other people do it to me. It's something that it's unfortunate, but I think it's a natural human tendency to project. And I'm not excusing anyone who does it, but it makes sense to me that people in the IFB are trying to leave the IFB or one foot in, one foot out would easily project onto you their own shame and guilt and feel like that's okay because they don't even realize what they're doing in many. And I'm not excusing their actions, but I'd say in a lot of instances, probably don't even realize what they're doing.
Yep, I agree.
A couple people are asking
help.
how to help or how can they help see justice in this situation.
So I mean, I feel like everybody is already helping tremendously. Like the support is just huge. Um, I think I think it's a far bigger problem than just Cameron. I'm not like it's not like let's say June 1st, Cameron has to register as a sex offender. I'm not stopping there. I'm not going to continue to beat that horse, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm going to continue to raise awareness. Like this goes far beyond my situation. So I would think that like how to help would just be to continue to be supporting to victims and advocates for people who um, have been through similar situations. So, I mean, it kind of reminds me of Rachel Peach, who is a victim
Yes.
of Victor's. And I mean, the fact that she literally is screaming from the mountaintops for every victim she meets, I think that's huge. And so I think that's how people can help is just to continue to be a voice and help give victims a voice and just encouraging them. Because you don't know when they're having a bad day and they've read a really nasty comment and are questioning coming forward. So the support is just huge.
So I'm reading more that's coming in. So raising awareness, I know that I'll just speak to that briefly because there's a lot of things that myself, my good friend Josh Owens, were trying to raise awareness for. So raising awareness is a nice, easy, broad, and I'm not saying this to you, Sarah, I'm saying this to the people kind of asking the question here. Raising awareness is a nice, easy, broad term to use, but brass tacks, getting down to it, how can you help? John brought up a good point, news, media, petitions. Do what you can, whether it's going to Sarah's profile, looking at her posts, showing her some love, and I'm not trying to just build you up, don't get that wrong, but like going and showing her love where others aren't doing that, that's a huge help, I think. But also, you know, when it comes to specifically what we're dealing with right now, as far as these guys trying to start a Bible college in what I would call BFE, that's the best way for them to do it because they're in the middle of nowhere. Them trying to start a Bible college, reach out to the local news. If you're in Florida or if you know people in Florida or if you just want to do some of your own research, find news stations in Jacksonville and give them links to the legitimate articles that are telling people who Cameron really is, who Greg really is, who Tom really is, who Grace Senior really is, and what's really going on in Jacksonville, Florida. Like if you want to put feet to it, I've made a career out of trying to figure out how social media works and how, you know, to digitally help people or help myself. There's so much you can do on digital. So whether it's just showing love on a post or whether it's going, you know, digging up the information.
And even sharing stuff. Like, so just because, let's say I'm friends with you on Facebook, well, you could have 500 friends that I'm never going to have access to. So if something is shared about these men or this college or things that they're doing, like getting the word out there, like a simple share is going to reach so many more eyes than I can do myself. I can only scream as loud as I can without the help of other people. So getting the word out there. And there is actually a news station in Florida that contacted me yesterday that I'm supposed to be doing an interview with. So that hopefully we'll get that. But yeah, like you said, like, and I think social media is huge. Like I know there's a lot of people who don't like social media and there is negative on social media. But I think that is a huge way to get word out there. So the fact that they're sharing their college on social media, if we keep getting out there who these men are and what they've done and what they're capable of, getting it into the ears of someone that may not know.
Janine, I don't know if this is satirical or true, but Janine says she's moving to Jacksonville on July 1st. Janine, if that's the truth, me and you, we need to link up, and yeah, we'll do some work on that. John said in Utah, the news stations eat up stories like this for the LDS Church. Unfortunately, I don't know how big in that part of Florida the IFB is, but yeah, let's be real. Like the news, when's the last time you turned on the news and saw something positive? So again,
right.
Not funny. I know I keep chuckling, but This is something the news stations want to know about, whether it's via social media for them to share on their social media, or giving them a video of you talking about whatever it is, or just linking up information that's going to be helpful to them in tracking down the actual truth of what's going on. So Janine is serious. All right, Janine, we'll talk for sure. But yeah, tracking down that information, sharing it with local news stations. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of what's going on here with Cameron and then here with Sara, but like whatever situation you know of, this is applicable across the board. So if you know of something in your hometown, if you know of something in a different town and you're trying to, get that information out, news media is a great way to do it. And they know what the news knows, how to vet their sources. So if you're sending them a legitimate link, if you can prove to them that you're a legitimate source, there's not going to be a question. I mean, they're going to go through some vetting, but there's not going to be a question of, oh, well, you're not legitimate, like you're used to dealing with inside the IFB, which because you wear pants or you have a drink a time or two and you post about it on Facebook, therefore you're illegitimate. No, that's not the case with news media. They just know, can we trust you? Okay, cool. We're going to run with this story. Okay, Bethany, I want to read this from Bethany. The charity that I'm a member of is a great supporter for abused children. We go to court with the victim and will show up anytime, any place if a child needs us. I wish I had the guardians of the children when I had to go through the court process. We are an international organization and would love to be a support system for any child that's dealing with this hell. Okay, Bethany, feel free to put a link to your site or your page in the comments. I would love to see that. Sorry, Sara, I'm not trying to take anything away from what you're reading here. River said, my question still is, how is Cameron going to run a college from jail? Does he think this is over? I mean, Sara, I would love you to speak to that. I think he does.
mean, ideally that there's not going to be a college.
Right. That's our goal. That's a lot.
So we have until fall of 2020 before they open those doors to that awful place. So, I mean, I really do think that, I think it's possible to stop it. So. Yeah. I don't want to put a limit on that. Like, I totally think that this can be stopped. And I'm watching while they're saying that there's support and he's posting that he's getting all these emails of parents that are, I totally think that that's bogus and he's trying to convince himself more than us. But I'm seeing a lot of people like, who do you think you are? Who's actually going to go there? And even people that are still very involved in the Baptist faith. So the goal is that there is no college and they never open those doors.
I will say one thing, just because I do social media for a living. This isn't about me. I want to help educate you guys a little bit. You may know, you may not. Once you take action on a page, that page can then, a page like I don't know what it's, is it North Florida Baptist Church? Whatever the page is, once you take action on a Facebook page, you write a review, you leave a comment, you like any kind of action, they can then block you from that page. So I'm not telling you, by all means, flood them, make some fake bogus accounts or whatever, and let them know how you really feel. I just want you guys to be aware and understand that once you take an action on their page, that's when you can be blocked. In fact, you can be blocked. I was blocked from North Valley because people kept tagging me. I never commented or said a single thing or liked any post or disliked any posts, but it can being tagged there. So just know that is not in any way, shape, or form to discourage you from taking action on their ridiculous Facebook page. But just know that once you take that action, expect to be blocked if you're saying something to the effect of these guys are perverts and we can't trust them. If you're saying something,
and they'll probably delete it anyway.
Say that again.
And they'll probably delete it anyway. So I feel like almost the best way to do it, while let's still try and put it on their page, is maybe sharing the page on your own with a comment to get eyes in there. Like, I'm blocked from every single thing they do before I even get a chance to get to it. I didn't even know that they had a Facebook page. I went to look it up. It's not there. Didn't know they had a Twitter and said something. Went there. Oh, you're blocked. Surprise, surprise. So I can't even get to it. But I could take screenshots, I can do whatever, and I can get it to people so they're still seeing this is a thing and this is what you need to know about it. So just because you can't post to their page, still put the word out there.
And just to go a little bit deeper on that, if you're going to share it to your personal page and talk about it, we want to get more eyes on it, but I would advise making it a private post, just to your friends, not a public post, because a public post they can have more control over and or block you. So if you make it a private post, like for instance, if you share anything from Not Your Mother's podcast and you have a normal private profile and you don't make it a public post, I can't see it. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If you're going to share it, make it a private post. While it may not get as many eyes as a public post, it also won't get their eyes. It'll go further with your friends and it'll stay active on your profile instead of getting deleted by them. Okay, I think we got a bunch of stuff coming in. I like this one from Amanda. Besides online Facebook support, what are some things, books, occurrences, etc., that have been the most encouraging since telling your story? Do you mind answering that?
I will say that, so I read Pastor Shiflett's book, and I feel like that was helpful because the whole second half of the book was like how we can prevent things like this from helping. So that helped. But honestly, the biggest thing has been therapy. And I know we touched on that, but honestly, I feel like that has been the most helpful since coming forward, is knowing that I have support from my friends and family, and going to therapy and being able to talk things out. I feel like that has been huge in moving forward and trying to figure everything out, because I'm not on the other side of it yet. Even if the investigation were to end tomorrow, I'm still very much working through things. So I think that's what's going to continue to help me stay above water.
That's awesome. And that's good. Like you've got to have those resources. Going it alone is, I don't know, there's people that are strong enough. I'm not saying that you're not, but always having those resources and people to lean on, or books to read, or outlets for yourself, whether that be therapy or just talking to some friends, I think is very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is interesting from John Bannister. We can speak to a representative in Florida to shut it down. Iowa did this for Harvest Baptist Church, and that's something where John was I would say, an integral part of that church. And he says that talking to your local representative, can make a difference. So if there's people in here that are in Florida, or Janine, if you're moving to Florida, that's definitely something that, you can take it up with your representative. We're not trying to push you off by saying that, just another resource or way that you can help keep this from happening. Bethany, thank you for sharing the link to your site. We appreciate that very much.
I saw someone said, I know there's been other victims. Have they spoken out as well? There has been, I know that there's been affairs that have spoken up or spoken out.
Yes.
No other minors that could help me in, or not even help me, that sounds selfish, but help the investigation against Cameron have yet come forward, even though my gut tells me there's plenty more.
Amanda,
which would be huge. No, that's it. You're good.
Amanda asked, and again, feel free, and this is nothing against people asking these questions. I just want to make sure that we do this right. Amanda asked, looking back on how he groomed you, can you recognize the same behaviors towards or with anyone else that you went to school or church with? And she's saying, obviously, no names there. She's not asking for you to name anyone, but is this something that you feel like you saw repeated with anyone else that you were in church with, in youth group with?
Yeah, there's 3 people on the top of my head. Obviously, I won't give names, that I 100% recognize things on both ends, and it makes me sad. Like, and I may never know if there's anything behind that, but I know how he was, and I know how I looked at him when I was fully involved in things. And I even had many conversations with him and gave names, and would straight up ask, are you doing something with so and so? And, oh, you're so funny. No, I don't have time for that. And even when I asked after, was I the only one? I remember he was on a flight somewhere. It was since being a GSBC.
Yeah.
He was going somewhere and he was on the plane alone. And it was often whenever he was on the plane alone, because he would have Wi-Fi on the plane, that he would message me on Facebook, like checking in, how you doing, whatever. And there was a couple times I'd say, was I the only one? And he went into this long thing. Well, the church grew after, once we had stopped, the church was so big and I didn't have time. So are you saying that you would have done it if you did have time?
Wow.
So you make time for what you want to do. So yeah, there's definitely people, a couple people that I and I've even talked to people about it. It's just I definitely was not the only one. But yes, there was affairs that came forward too.
There's a couple things I want to. I'm not trying to cut you off from anything you want to read, so feel free to put your hand up. Let me know. Shut up, Stuart. Oh, I just lost it. Hang on. I want Anna Jones. I want to read what your question. Absolutely. I do want to get to. If there's anyone in here who's looking for some resources to help kids, I want to read what Bethany's saying. She says each chapter of her foundation has a Facebook page. You can just search Guardians of the Children and search for the page of a chapter closest to you. So I want to make sure that we just cover that briefly. Anna said, do you feel that former juvenile victims aren't coming forward because they're waiting to see your case actually see results? The sad reality may be that they may feel the pain you endure isn't worth it if you get zero justice. And again, and this isn't anything against Anna whatsoever, good friend of the podcast, but it is, if you want to answer that, feel free. If not, I understand.
No, I have had that exact conversation with a couple people. I 100% think, because like I've said, my gut tells me that there were more. I don't think, even if I was the first, I definitely wasn't the last. But I 100% think that there are people on the sidelines that are, first of all, you see like the backlash that, and nothing like, oh, poor me, look at me, but the backlash that I've gotten since coming forward that's super intimidating. So it's not like the what if I come forward, what's going to happen? Well, you saw someone come forward for the same person and who comes to their aid. So yes, I totally think that there's more that are unfortunately still just watching and kind of waiting. But what's hard is if there were more in my situation and more minor victims of his, this case could go so much further and so much faster. So it would actually be a help if they reached out to me or the investigator or to anyone. That would help build a case so much better than just me by myself.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. And again, that's not, I wouldn't say, sorry, I'm not trying to speak for you, Sarah, but I wouldn't say that's to put pressure on any other victims or women who've experienced this with him, but it's just to say, hey, if you want to help, you're not saying it's going to be an easy road, I don't think, but you're saying it will help the case against him. This sounds bad. I'm just going to say it. I'm not trying to be partial to my family, but Mike has endured some stuff himself, Mike Lucas. So I just want to read what he said because I think it's valid and it's helpful. He said, you see and you notice so much more once you are forced by abuse to open your eyes for the dangers and signs of predators' personal experience. And I know what he's talking about, and I understand that. So I agree, Mike. You make perfect sense as far as once you've seen someone go through it or had to be close to it, whether it happened to you or not, it's definitely something that opens your eyes and it educates you.
Yeah.
Lack of a better word, but it definitely does.
Unfortunately, I think you're able to see red flags so much easier. Like the question, did you see anything with other people with Cameron? Once I learned his tactics and how he would act towards me or look at me or talk to me, you're able to recognize that that's not just, an innocent thing with someone else, or you see the way someone's looking at him, why. So you're able to see the red flags, unfortunately, so much more when it's happened.
Yep. John Bennett, again, this is a very pointed question, and I love John. He's been a good friend of the podcast and a guest many times. So this isn't against him, but if it's not something you can or are able to answer, I understand. But he asks, this might be too fresh, but were the affairs college students? Once again, the colleges, frown on this. If you can't say, he says he understands.
Like Cameron's affairs?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is that what he's asking?
Yeah.
No, it was adults in the church, members of the church.
Okay, gotcha.
So it was after me. I think the one that came forward that Pastor Shiflett actually wrote about in his book, unfortunately, she came forward and she was saying, like, what can I do to help? But unfortunately, with the legal side, while an affair is a huge thing in, like, moral wise and
right,
in the Baptist faith, Unfortunately, on the legal side, that's not something that we can prosecute him for. It's not illegal. So it didn't help in that way, but it gave her a voice. And if nothing else, it shows his character. Like he was a repeat offender in the aspect of he always had a separate life.
Right.
But no, it was adults in the church.
Yeah, and it speaks to a pattern of sexual indiscretion at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he can't seem to, you know, just stay with his wife and be happy with that. Like that's very telling.
Yeah.
Heather said that she thinks.
And I think that was also, sorry,
No,
that
no.
was also something that was kind of frustrating is like the people that were fighting up against me and trying to bully and whatever were so focused on my situation. I'm not the only one that has spoken up.
Sure.
So why are we ignoring these other situations and these, you know, the woman that can describe the inside of his house that had never been there otherwise? How else would she know the inside of his house? Like, and she tells details of things that he did, and it's the same things that he did with me. So why are we only focused on let's make Sara look like a liar, like she's
Right.
some bitter ex-Baptist,
Yeah.
instead of looking at like, no, this is who he is, and she's not the only one. The one that came forward, the main one,
Mm-hmm.
I never even met her, and if I did, I don't remember. Like, she had mentioned some dates where I think we may have overlapped in the church.
Sure.
But so it's someone that I have no idea who she is, and our stories are very similar. So that's just frustrating.
Yeah, incredibly. And a couple of people, Mike and John, are both kind of weighing in on the fact that Cameron kind of used his power to, you know, to help himself, you know, to make this situation happen in the way that he wanted it to, and the fact that in and of itself kind of brings in an additional aspect to what happened. It's not just the facts and the law. It's also the fact that he used his position of leadership to do this.
Right. I personally think he's a narcissist. So I think this is something that he thrives off of, is that feeling of power over someone. And I think this is just one of the ways that he can get it.
Yep. Jay had asked about, and again, it's up to you to answer or not, about PTSD, nightmares, stuff like that. Was it something that you had to endure? Have you found a way to cope with it? Again,
I have not been diagnosed with PTSD, but 100% I have night terrors where I will wake up literally sobbing, and
oh my God,
like I'll have dreams where I am, in the beginning more so it was begging him, like, Cameron, please, like, just admit it, like, let's make this stop. Like, so like all these dreams where different scenarios play out, or I'll see Sara and I'll be begging her, please listen to me, and it's always like a feeling of helplessness, like begging for this to end. So I would think that that goes hand in hand with that. I've not officially been diagnosed, but I totally understand people that deal with that. And the flashbacks, for sure, like when I went to the church, unfortunately, I mean, it's hard not to. Or driving somewhere and knowing, you know, I met up with him in this place or whatever. It's impossible not to have those flashbacks and be upset.
Again, a little bit of levity here as we're in some intense stuff. I think Andrew and Jay are having a like/heart war, and I appreciate that, guys. Thank you very much. They're trying to see who can give us the most. Thank you. Bethany said, I know this is a question. This question is for Sara, but I thought I'd throw it out there. She says she has severe nightmares, basically reliving the abuse. Prazosin, I'm sure.
Good luck on that word.
Blocks all of my dreams, and I can actually sleep through the night now. So she's talking about I think it's some medication maybe that she's on that has helped. And I think, let me scroll back up here. I want to say thank you to Bethany. You've been a real resource in here for people, just kind of sharing your experiences and saying ways to help and what works. So thank you so much for that. I sincerely appreciate that. And what you said earlier, Sara, it's not being for or against drugs. I shouldn't say drugs, but medication. But whatever, you know, you find that works for you, my goodness, go for it.
Well, and my thing has kind of always been where I know, you know, again, like medicine for mental illnesses or stuff like that are also another taboo thing. But my thing has always been your brain is part of your body, just like you can get cancer in your body and you take
Mhm.
medicine for that. Like we have chemo and stuff to cure that. Why is it an issue when you're taking something to help your brain? That's still part of your body. Why is that looked down on? To whatever helps any part of your body should not be an issue.
Agreed. And a couple people, Andrew, let's see, bytap.com, John Bannister mentioned. They'll help you sleep is a good company. Andrew mentioned chewable melatonin. I give that to myself, and Chloe sometimes definitely helps sleep. There's a company, there should be a discount code with my friend Dan Henderson you can use called Some Sleep, SOMSLEEP. If anyone wants kind of a link up to that, I can't type it in right now, but it's just it's a melatonin drink, but man, that thing knocks me out. I'm not trying to say prescribe it. I'm no doctor. It's not a cure for PTSD or anything like that, but
Right.
something has really helped. I would definitely check it out if that's something you want to try. Janine's also on the same medication. It helps. It's anti-hypertension drug with an off-label use for decreasing PTSD and nightmares. Interesting. It's good to know. I don't know if prazosin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but that's something that clearly has been prescribed and has helped a lot of people. Janine, sorry, now we have a question. They're going back and forth with each other in the comments. Andrew's asking if that's over the counter. I'm guessing not. But Janine is a medical graduate. Congratulations, Janine. She would know. I just don't want to miss anything. Yeah, if you guys have more questions, keep them coming. Sarah, we've kept you super, super late tonight. I know we have, so I'm grateful. Grateful for you, as long as you have. Heather wants to know if this is something, if what you've dealt with is causing you anxiety at times.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, it does.
Makes sense.
There's not too much to expand on that, but absolutely.
Yeah.
Just in all kinds of areas. It's just first of all, there's so many moving parts, even right now with the situation, that are always stressful and raises your anxiety. But even in certain situations that I went through with him, still raise anxiety.
Yeah, I can imagine. Amanda says you've always been a night owl. I haven't always, but I acclimate to that. I do want to say this from Mike as well. Working out is an amazing source of stress relief. I'm not in that place right now, but when I have been, and hopefully in the near future will be, I agree with that 100%. Like getting a good sweat in, getting that exertion. I'm not trying to be macho about it. I feel like that has been a
side effect. So you might put naked pictures on Facebook. So.
I thought you were being serious. I was like, oh no, yeah, exactly. Can't have the Facebook nudies. That's a huge problem. Yes, Andrew, we both do have sleeping issues for that reason. Janine says Walmart often has SSRIs for $4 a month supply. I missed that comment. I'm sorry. Anna says this is probably beating a dead horse, but how the heck do you really bridge the gap from protecting all you've known to not doing that? I'm not sure I'm understanding that question. I'm not trying to be silly there, Anna. I'm sorry. How do you really bridge the gap?
I don't know if she means going. I don't. Yeah, Anna, I don't understand that one.
Can you? We all have issues, Anna. Anna, can you? I'm so sorry, but we want to answer that. I think we do.
But I just break it down a little bit more.
Yeah, expand on that just a little bit, please, because we want to answer that. Okay, good. I am pronouncing it right. Janine says, health and science words to take advantage. Yeah, right. Thanks. John Bannister, you're cracking me up. John says to run a marathon in Antarctica because that's what John is currently training to do. If you see a question in here, Sarah, that you want to answer and I didn't go over it, feel free to.
I just saw Mike's. How has this affected your relationship with your husband? In a big way, and that took me a long time to get through. Trust issues, because how do you go from your first interaction with almost all of your relationship first being with someone who is married and showing you that married men can have a secret life,
Yeah.
someone, your pastor. So from the very beginning, my very first relationship, because unfortunately that was a relationship in my 16-year-old eyes,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, all that did was teach me major trust issues.
Yeah.
So that was a huge part of the toxicity in my first relationship with my first legitimate boyfriend
Yeah.
was, how do you trust someone? I've been on the other end of that. I know how you can appear to all these people and be able to hide it so well. So that even started into my marriage, was trying to realize he is not Cameron,
Right.
and I can't roll that over. So it's a work in progress. And honestly, again, communication is huge. Me telling him I'm having a bad day, like, he might need to be more understanding and understand he needs to be a little bit more transparent than, maybe another marriage, but it's working together as a couple. But I would say trust issues was a huge part of it.
I can only imagine. And thank you. I just want to say this to you, Sarah. You're fielding. I know it's late, but you're fielding a lot of questions, and you're going a lot of places that you don't have to for all of us. So thank you so much for doing that. Anna gave us a little more on that question, and then Janine had asked a question as well. So Anna said, "How do you bridge the gap between protecting all you've known and then choose to not protect the people and institutions you've always known to be an authority?" Again, I feel this and have experienced this, haven't bridged it yet. And again, Anna's, I don't know if you know her at all, Sarah, but Anna's not, there's no animosity coming from like, well,
Yeah.
she's definitely asking a very legitimate question. Does it make sense now? Is that something that you could speak
So
to?
tell me if I'm understanding this right. So basically, are you saying, like, how did I go from protecting Cameron and
The
what
church?
I was hiding from him and all of that to being able to basically buck up against that and speak out on it? Is that what she's saying?
And I'm not going to answer for her. Anna, if you can just give us a yes, or maybe again give us a little more clarification, we will come back and definitely want to answer that question. Anna says yes.
Um, I can tell you that even a year later and even after having come forward, it is still a daily mental struggle. And I actually even have talked to Rachel about this, and the person that Cameron had an affair with.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard to go from truly believing that you love this person and then it just becoming second nature to protect them for so many years.
Sure.
I can't tell you that there hasn't been days in the last year that I have felt almost guilty for betraying him. And that's why when I wrote that letter to him, I even said in there, like, I know you feel betrayed because we had this, we don't tell anybody, we take it
Yeah.
to the grave, and it was talked about so much. And it was like we almost had each other's backs when really I just had his back because he wasn't hiding anything
Yep.
from me. But to make that switch and go from protecting him to not is still, even after being on this side of it, is still a huge mental struggle, and something that I'm even talking to my therapist about, because it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't been in this situation, but you almost get angry at yourself because you don't want to feel sympathy for this person because you know they did something so horrendous. But I can't I can't say that I still don't have that part of me that is like, I'm sorry, I know you are probably hurt that I told on you or whatever. So I would just say, again, therapy, because even on this end of it and after you out them, it's still very emotionally hard on you.
I can imagine. I just to kind of dovetail with that a little bit. Again, I'm not speaking from experience. I don't even have a place to speak here. But like, I would just say that this isn't a one and done kind of thing. And like you said
Mhm.
before, God, like an hour ago, like you didn't come forward like, oh, this is going to be a walk in the park, and I can't wait to come forward and tell everyone this is so much fun. It's a lot of work, like, and it's something that you found necessary to do, and we applaud you. But like, that's a lot of work, and it's an ongoing thing for sure.
Right.
Um,
And I think people also that are on his side kind of think that, you know, you just come forward and you just bash him and you ruin his life. But there's so much more than that, and it's not easy on the victim or survivor's end. Like, it's something that you literally think about every single day. And there's the angry part of me towards him that wants him to have to think about it every single day. Like, if you have messed with my head this much, I want you to suffer just as much as I did. And I know that sounds angry, but it is.
that's the reality of the situation, though.
Right.
Jay asked, how do you go from keeping a secret for so long to being free about it? That's a good question. That's a tough one.
Talking. I feel like the more that you talk, the easier it gets. And the more that I'm able to speak out, like even hitting post that first day, like while there still was a huge weight on you, a huge weight has been lifted. Like the more you talk, the easier it gets. I feel like that's with anything. Like if you're training for a marathon, the more you just keep at it, the more second nature it'll be. So I basically I think you just force yourself to do it and it'll get easier.
Practice makes perfect, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not trying to close, as the pastors would say, but I do want to thank you guys for all the questions. These have been great questions, I think. I don't know, Sarah, if you agree. But
I do too.
I think these have been great questions, and I'm super grateful that you guys are taking the time kind of towards the end here to kind of chime in and let Sarah, give Sarah the support that she deserves, but also, hit her with a few questions. She's been through the ringer here, and she knows what it's like. Yeah, Heather, I agree. It's sickening. Well, I
And it
thought,
wasn't even for Heather's comment, it wasn't even just that. I mean, you got to think he was counseling my parents because their relationship was strained with me my senior year.
eesh,
So here you are, like basically the cause of my really me like pulling back, and you're having counseling sessions with my parents, or so my third hour during the day, because I had done PACES my ninth grade year,
mhm.
when I was in my senior year, one of the classes that the seniors were taking, I had already taken. So I was assigned to be his office aide that hour. And that's when a lot of things happened. So we were in the office with my grandmother, who is his secretary, and we would leave to go to the study, and then he would walk right back in and face my grandmother. So if that's not a slap in the face,
That's crazy. And I think,
that just shows like I know if there's still people on here that are easily offended, like that just goes to show like the balls of someone that you have the guts to face someone, like you can just completely cut off and
no,
disrespect someone, like to know what you just did with their minor granddaughter and then you walk right back in and face them, and it just sickens me. That just shows how he is though.
I think, yeah, how he is, and I think that speaks to the level of narcissism that lives in him to this day, which is,
Yep.
I'm not saying, to me it's unreal. I'm not saying I'm anyone special for that, but like that's mind-boggling that someone could have that level of narcissism. They could look your grandma in the face moments after this has happened and just, it's another day, you're my secretary, make sure you hold my calls, kind of thing. Like, it's unreal.
The first day that the first time that he kissed me, and like I said, I was shaking, I didn't know what I was
Yeah.
doing, whatever, and so that was during that hour. And then after lunch, my first class was English with his wife, and
Oh,
he pulled me out of his wife's class saying that he had an issue with my pace, to go then take me back and continue to teach me.
oh,
So he looked his wife in the face and pulled me out of her class. So again, like there are so many things that I could tell, like this man is so much worse than people even realize.
that's unreal. Dude.
Not offended, River.
Yeah, I'm enjoying all the offended comments and the not actually offended, but I just love the community that we have here and people going back and forth. It's always, I get a kick out of it. People are giving John, just side note, John, you should know we're not discouraging you from Antarctica, but Mike there knows about it because he lived in Alaska for a little bit. So not exactly the same, but pretty close. So that's the experience that Mike is speaking from. Man, this has been so good, Sarah. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share your story. And I'm not closing. Every time I say close, Jay says, I surrender all. Because they like to mess with me on these lives and call me a preacher. And because I do say I'm closing like way too many times. But I can't think.
Every head bowed, every eye closed.
You do now. But I can't thank you enough, really, for taking the time, not just to share your story and your thoughts and kind of rehash the most recent blog that you put up, but also answering all these questions, because I think they are, again, the whole goal of this, like I said, when we started today and talking about it, was just to help people. And so I'm certain that you've helped a lot of people. So I'm super grateful for that. Okay, now we're getting all the altar calls. I know, guys.
Well, and I also appreciate, because this is a platform, and this is going to reach people again that I wouldn't reach otherwise. And another thing again is talking it out. So even the comments, like, or the questions and comments, being able to answer things that we necessarily didn't think of ahead of time. That I think it's been a lot of things of helping people. So
I agree, and again, I'm glad you can have that perspective. I'm glad it wasn't. You're a bit of a celebrity in our world. It's just the truth. Not for a reason that you want to be, but you're here now, so it is what it is. But you could have easily said, "Okay, I said my piece," and signed off. And I'm grateful that you didn't. That you stuck around for them. Both of my parents have now signed off because it's their bedtime. Anna says, "Thanks for being a night owl." To you, not to me. Bethany says her dad has 8 closes every service, and yes, she counts. Yeah, well, 8 closes sounds about right. It sounds about par for the course. All right. Well, I don't want to miss. You guys are just having fun in the comments, and I love it. I don't want to turn it off, but I don't want to keep anyone up too late, and I don't want to miss any questions or any comments that need to be read. So feel free to keep going, guys. We're probably not going to go much longer, just because, like, I think we're out of questions. But if you guys have more, go for it. I just don't want there to be a bunch of dead air. We're not able to contribute to you guys at all. Mike Smith says it's not a good invitation unless you have 47 verses of Just As I Am. That sounds like Mount Salem Revival Grounds campground. It was terrible.
Oh my God, did you go there?
You did? You did too?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I went for their big youth conference every year. Is that the one you went to?
The cinder block showers with the spiders.
Yeah.
And you have to hold the string to get water. So you could like attach like a shampoo bottle to hold it so it would continue.
You were ingenious. I didn't think that about it.
It gives me the heebie-jeebies.
I went pretty consistently. I went every year from, I think, 9th grade on. It was terrible. I don't know if you remember the men's dorms. We had to go literally up the side of a mountain to get to our dorms. I could
like 1,000,000 steps.
Yeah, something like that. It was ridiculous. I can tell you right now, in my current physical shape, I don't think I could even make that. I couldn't even get to the top, running or anything. I don't think I could get to the top. But yes, I remember Mount Salem well. I do want to I think.
And then the bell ringing, and you go to 2 a.m., but then you got to be up at 6 a.m. for breakfast.
It was nuts. It was
so bad.
It was nuts. I got a buddy. He's not in here. Matt Namath was on staff there. Matt's a dear friend of mine. He's in the military, and he has. I don't know. We had good times there, but I made really good friendships there. But that was a terrible place. That was the worst. And
so bad.
It was terrible. What they say about camp food, that was Mount Salem. The food was so bad, you could count on it.
Yeah. And another thing, so the pool had like those massive walls around it, and the females had to swim in pool clothing.
Yes.
Couldn't even wear bathing suits in front of other women. Like, you were wearing turtlenecks and knee-length skirts in a pool trying not to drown.
Yes.
So good times.
I didn't know you were there all this time we've been connected. I had no clue, but yeah, we Mount Salem.
So bad.
That was a tribulation time for sure. What do they say? Trials and
Talk about PTSD.
Oh yes, all the PTSD. Let's see here. I wanna talk more about Mount. We need to have a podcast. Me and you. We'll go live again. The next one will be Mount Salem.
Right.
I'm dead serious. I just don't want to miss this from Anne. I know it's going to get buried. So she said an earlier question that John tried to help me with. How do we help perpetuate the momentum you have to bring justice to Cameron? I think we talked about that a little bit. But is that something that you want to speak to? Excuse me, additionally, Sarah's or more.
Unfortunately, I feel like legally we're kind of at, like, our hands are tied with the legal justice part just because I'm waiting on the investigator and all that they're doing. So I mean, he'll reach out with questions and he asks me stuff and I give him everything that he needs. But until I have some kind of answer one way or another from them, there's really not much I can do unless there was, another minor victim or something that would come forward to help the case. Other than that, there's really not much that I can do in that way.
But again, it's still we're still able to put pressure on him via social media, especially since he thinks that it's a good idea to be so active on social media with these things being actively pursued against him. The fact that it doesn't work to his betterment, it works to his detriment. So being active on social media and being an advocate there and reaching out to local news stations in Jacksonville is, I mean, I'm not trying to trump what you're saying because you're absolutely right. I'm not going to get in the way. But I think if you're looking for something that you can do, that's something that you can do for sure.
Especially since he's acting and talking like this is over and he's gotten away. And honestly, if he truly believes that the investigation is over, he probably feels like he's on top of the world because he always had to worry about his wife finding out. Well, now his wife found out and she stayed with him and the world knows and everything's great because he still has his posse that's keeping him employed. So he probably feels like everything's grand.
Sorry, we're getting back to, we're getting back to Mount Salem a little bit. Yes, good old Oliver Areza, John Bannister. He popped up on my timeline the other day. Dude cracks me up. Bell Rice Ranch, Mike, yes, I'm sure it was quite similar. My mom could speak to that more than me. And my cousin Mike says, try MREs twice a day for 13 months. No, Mike, I'm going to pass. Those things stop you up. Jay said, I thought I was a terrible swimmer for the longest time. I found out later, culottes were not my friend.
Like, fun fact, I still can't swim. I am terrified of water, cannot swim. I might be able to survive, but...
You doggy paddle a little? That's it, though?
Yeah. But I will be screaming for someone to actually come help me.
Get the hell out of here.
Not good.
Amanda mentioned the cranberry juice in Mount Salem. Sarah, do you remember that? I don't remember the cranberry juice.
I don't remember the cranberry juice.
We're not saying it's...
But I also don't like cranberry juice unless it's mixed with vodka, so I don't know that I would have drank it.
The magic ingredient. Yes, Mike, I'm a wuss. I have had like 2 MREs in my life. I'm not trying to do it anymore. Call me a wuss all you want. I'm not eating your MREs.
What is an MRE?
Meal ready to eat. Mike, help me out. It's the military ones that come in like the greenish brown packet, and it's terrible.
They're like all dry and
stuff. Well, they're made to last for like 300 years or something. It's pretty ridiculous. I hit up my sister. She's been in she's been in the Air Force for a long time, and I hit her up. Oh God, it must have been not Memorial Day, Veterans Day a while ago. I'm like, I want to eat our MRE on Veterans Day. She's like, that's the dumbest thing ever. Why would you do that to your stomach? So, and she's right. John Bannister, I don't know where Josh Owens is. We love him, but I'm sure he'll see this at some point. It is late over there where he's at, and I think actually he has someone visiting this weekend, so that's probably why. Yeah, there Mike says military rations packaged to last forever. Yeah, Janine, weird because they were so hung up on the water magic of baptism in regards to our not being able to swim. Good. Heather, I'm glad your daughter likes her culottes. That's terrific. And I'm not being sarcastic. Puke in a pack, says Bethany. John has boxes of them. Throw them away.
I have never tried one, and I don't think I will ever
Don't do it.
try one.
You won't be able to. Yeah, okay, I won't do that. You're right. Yes, Mike, Chair Force. Yeah, she does not know about MREs. You are right. You were right. Absolutely. Why did I think you were Air Force, Mike? Sorry, I'm getting into extra personal stuff here. I shouldn't. Let's see. Puke in a pack, puke in a sack. All right. Sounds like a great time. John says it's Bring Your Friend Sunday. Yes, he should have been here. It's Bring Your Friend Sunday. We're having a lot of talk of culottes in here, so which are baggy short. Yes, okay, Mike was in the Army. Yes, I have talked to my buddy Ben Fugit, who is an MRE expert, and he's told me which ones to get, which I've forgotten, Mike, long ago. But there are I think there's 2 or 3 that military people will tell you, you can actually stomach these. They don't taste like garbage, but there are a few. Yes, I will not make that mistake ever again, Mike. He was Air Force. I'm sorry. Oh. All right, guys. Again, I hate to make this stop because I'm Sarah. You've been such an incredible guest. We're so grateful that you came along and took the time out of your schedule. You got a little one and you got other things to deal with, so we're very grateful for that. But now all we're doing is talking about meals ready to eat from the military, and we have veered far off subject, for which I'm fine with, but I don't
so far.
be entirely relevant. Now we're getting advice on what MREs to eat or not to eat. So if you try to eat one, avoid the ones with meat at all costs. Okay, I understood, Heather. Ethan says he still sees Oliver Sr. You see Oliver Sr. on the regular? I don't necessarily have anything against Oliver. He's old paths, but he cracks me up. Do you remember him preaching at all, Sarah? Oliver Areza?
That name sounds familiar. Is he short?
He is short, and I want to, this isn't to be whatever, take it how you want, but I believe he's either Native American and or Mexican. I think a little bit of both. His son is Junior, Ollie Junior. You've heard him preach. If you went to Mount Salem at least once, you heard Oliver preach.
I know the name. I just can't put a face to it, but
I'll send you.
I definitely remember the name.
That guy. John Bannister has a great memory. Yes. Oliver Areza preached against doubling up your T-shirts, layered T-shirts. That was a thing in the 90s, if you remember, for the fellas to wear.
Yeah, was that a bad thing?
Well, what was ironic about it was when Oliver was preaching about it, his son Ollie was sitting in front of me wearing layered T-shirts. So that was fun. But yeah, he did preach. That was the thing, and he did preach again. It's just new and worldly is bad. That's kind of cool if you remember. All right, so Anna's still in here asking some questions, and I do want to get to those. Just trying to. Heather says thanks so much for the encouragement. Yes, Mike and the ADHD. Okay, he goes to your uncle's church. Interesting, Ethan. Interesting. Ethan, can you answer us and tell us if he's still Mount Salem Revival Grounds? That'd be interesting.
Don't jump on the culottes bandwagon.
I was trying to read that. My first pair could have been used to house a tent revival. My first church thought if they didn't have 2,000 pleats, they were a sin. That's great. I love it.
So bad.
Rabbit trails are typical for, yes, they are. Sarah, okay, so let's read this from Anna. What sort of relief do you feel every day? Where is the relief directed? Like what experiences make you feel empowered for having come forward? Well, that's a pretty, nothing against Anna. I'm loving these questions. But like that's an intricate question. Is that something you can speak to at all?
So I would say, if I'm understanding her correctly, like what helps me feel relief, I guess.
Yeah.
Is again just talking and seeing my therapist weekly, and I mean I don't want to beat that horse, but at the same time I feel like that's the answer for a lot of it. But I feel like the more I talk and the more open I am and the more public I am, the more empowered I feel. And that's why I said he messed with the wrong person, because I'm not done.
Good. And would you, just to kind of speak to that a little bit, Sarah, would you say that's because you had to kind of stay, not had to, but like you stayed put and were silent for so long? So now
Yeah.
having the opportunity to speak out and making that opportunity for yourself kind of gives you that. I'm not trying to speak for you. I'm just asking. Do you feel like that kind of gives you?
No, for sure. And like even preparing for tonight, and while I was, texting you, telling you I was
Yeah.
so nervous, but there was this level of, or this feeling of knowing that this is something that I wouldn't have been able to do even 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was, you feel like I can, so I'm going to.
Awesome.
So he can no longer keep me quiet. So there's no longer that intimidation factor from him. So every time you get the chance to talk loudly.
Awesome. And I think we addressed this before. Someone kind of said it before, but I want to reiterate and just see if you ratify this or not. Do you feel like that, finding, I wouldn't say finding your voice because you always had it, but just getting it out there and saying, coming forward, do you feel like that gives you a sense, and this isn't, I don't know how anyone can take this the wrong way, but they shouldn't. Does it give you a sense of kind of self-empowerment now that you've done it yourself, and now that you're out there and saying your thing?
Yeah, I feel like it just fans that flame, and just it makes you, the more you do it, the stronger I think you get. And it helps you, like, each time you talk, I feel like more comes out, and that's therapeutic. Like there's things that I was able to say tonight that I haven't put in a post because maybe it didn't go along with it or whatever. But the more you talk, the more that's gonna come out, and the more it helps.
Yeah. So now, the one and only Josh Owens, good friend of the podcast, getting a lot of love because he's here. I have a feeling that John Bannister texted Josh Owens to show up, and this is no shade being thrown here. Josh has been a big help and friend of the podcast. I do want to see what this question is from Mike. He said, does it allow you to do away with treating certain individuals in a way that was seemingly out of character for you due to hiding their wrongdoings? I'm not sure if I understand that fully, Mike. I'm sorry. Mike is very intelligent. My cousin builds apps for a living, and most of his stuff goes right over my head, to his credit. Does that make sense to you, Sarah? Is that coming through for you? I'm sorry.
So I don't want it to come out cold,
Sure.
but if I'm understanding him correctly, I feel like I almost looked at Sara with like
Sarah,
feeling
all right,
sorry for
Sarah is his wife, just to
yeah.
differentiate here.
So I feel like that's an individual that I almost like felt sorry for, but since coming forward, I feel like now seeing her reaction, I no longer feel sorry for her because she's now been presented with it and I've seen how she's handled it. So I think that there are people that I've kind of made excuses for or whatever that I no longer have to, because I know the truth and I've been honest with myself, really.
Good. That's a good answer. Now, honestly, our comments, and I'm not mad at it, I love it now, our comment section are all about Josh Owens, which I think is the greatest thing ever, especially because he's on the same coast as you, or near it. He's Eastern, so he's just getting blown up. That's great. There was, we have to scroll back to it, but someone had dropped a comment. Yes, Heather, their true colors do show. I think it was Heather that dropped this comment. It was just really, really nice and kind. I don't know, it was Bethany. Just want to say thank you for, I'm so thankful for you being open about your situation. She says to you, Sarah, you already know I'm a huge supporter of your fight, but I can tell you that I know several pastors that also believe you and want you to have the justice that you deserve. I just didn't want that comment to go unnoticed. I thought that was a beautiful thing to say.
Yes.
So Mike, you and Mike are on the same page. That's what he was getting at.
Oh.
Josh is throwing out his numbers in the comments. He's gonna slide into them DMs. All right. again, I keep saying this every time I say like, oh, I don't want to miss any questions or what. Then we get like 3 more come in or a comment that we want to talk to. Okay, this may be a pretty intense question, but let's see if we can figure it out. Devaney said, is there some type of law that would limit Cameron from teaching minors if he's under criminal investigation? I mean, he is starting this Bible college, so it appears, if not. But do you know more about this? I don't, but I don't know if you do, Sarah.
I don't know, but if I had like what I would think is no, only because he's not been convicted with anything.
Okay.
He's not even officially been charged with anything yet. So it's still, with it still being in the investigation, I don't think that you can put restrictions on someone until they've been actually convicted. I think that would really raise some hell if
Yeah.
that were the case. Like for innocent people that are under investigation
Sure.
and you're putting restrictions on them. So while it would be nice because it would help protect from future, but I don't think so.
Okay, I do want to get to Andrea's question, which I think you'll be able to answer easily. But I want to speak to Josh Owens really quick. You're not stealing any focus, Josh. You're fine. He's worried about stealing the focus from you, but
No,
it's totally, the comments section is a show of the shit. So
it's helping keep it light in between.
yes, it's fun. Andrea said, "Are there more victims that have come forward yet?" I don't believe so, but Sarah, I'll let you answer that, of course.
No minors.
Right. Mike said, there are people in my life that I do treat differently due to their involvement, either directly or through negligence, which would typically be out of character for me, but I can't really explain. It's annoying. That's where that question came from. So I think Mike is saying like he's had, an experience where he's decided to treat someone different than maybe he normally would have due to their actions. So
And I think that's very similar too with Sarah. Like you want to feel bad for
yeah,
someone who's frustrated, not only has had affairs, but has done something so disgusting, and you have children with these people, and you depend on this person. And so you want, like, it's your human nature is to
yeah,
want to feel sorry for them and have sympathy towards them. But when you see them turn a blind eye consciously, it's kind of hard, and you can't anymore. You can't, like, ignorance is no excuse.
nope,
So
I agree. Um, Anna's asking all the hard questions tonight, and I'm loving it. Anna says,
I do too.
good. Did you ever believe your abuser was truly only abusing you and wouldn't abuse in the future, and that would be the reason for not telling anyone? Like, I'm fine, so no one else needs to be hurt. I think you answered that earlier, but Anna wasn't on here. You could speak to that briefly, Sarah. Excuse
And that's pretty much exactly what I said earlier too. He always told me that I was the only one. And honestly, like, so it's hard to like get you guys like put someone in my mindset back then, but in my 16-year-old mindset, this man loved me and told me
me.
he loved me every single day. And I honestly thought that. So
Yeah,
to me, I was in a relationship with this married pastor, as
yeah,
twisted as that is. But that's the mindset that I was in. So during that time, like I did 100% think it was just me. And he always told me
well,
if
he
I,
hurt you.
situations were only different and I would have known you, 8 years ago, which is before he was with Sarah, or if granted if I were older because I would have been like 6.
Yeah,
But
that's
um
a little crazy.
so right. But yeah, so at the time I thought that I was the only one. He always told me that there was just something about me, whatever. He tells you everything that you want to hear.
Yeah, that's
And then
beautiful.
even after having conversations, yes, you were the only one. So I kind of figured, well, I'll just handle it myself. He's now moved on to California. He's not around. I don't have to see him. I'll work through it myself. And then it just got to the point where you kind of lose that level of being naive and no, you're not the only one. And everyone always says there's never only one person. So,
Not
and as soon as I came forward, like I would have never known about his affairs that have come
right.
forward if I wouldn't have said something. But that shows his character and that I wasn't the only one.
Yep. Janine, I keep calling you Janine because that's how I know you. But Jay, tell me if you want me to call you Jay. I feel sorry. I feel bad because I'm probably calling you the wrong name. But Jay, she says, how did you get validation from authorities? I reported my abuse, she says, and it made everything 100 times worse. That's a tough question.
Um, so it has been extremely frustrating with the investigation process. I feel like there's been a lot of times where I'm almost the one like keeping it going, me like being that annoying person constantly emailing my investigator, honestly. But and even wrote in one of the emails, what's difficult is, unfortunately, my case is 12 years old and there's so much more work that goes into it. And there's cases of children that are being abused today that will always take, like, I need to get this kid out of a situation right now. So that's what's hard, is being patient. So I mean, the mental part at times can make it worse because I feel like I did my part. I came forward. I
Right.
told someone. Why is nothing happening? Um, so I don't think I've necessarily gotten validation from them yet. I'm just hoping that eventually.
I do want to read what Bethany says. She's been real active, had a lot of good things to say. She says, I don't want it to sound like I'm making this about me, but my experience. It blew my mind to find out that my abuser offended multiple times before me. It's hard to imagine someone would attempt to ruin multiple lives. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think something that I learned in dealing with narcissistic, just terrible people personally, and sorry, Sarah, I'm not trying to cut you off. I want you to speak to that as well. But
You're fine.
something that I've learned myself is actually my mother taught it to me, and I'm not saying it's money, but it helped me. And she told me when dealing with these terrible people, to basically to know them is to be them, and so to understand their thought process or how they could be so narcissistic and how they could be so evil. It just does. It's not going to be, in my opinion, it's not going to be something that your mind ever really fully encompasses because you're not them, and you'd almost have to be them in order to make any sense of what they've done to you and others. But sorry, go ahead, Sarah. I didn't mean to.
Right. Um, and so I love Dr. Phil, and he even
He's
said something similar to that, like,
nice.
you'll never understand because you're not that person. Like a narcissist, if you're not a narcissist, you can't fathom or like understand what they're thinking or their reasons for doing it because you're not that person. So we're never going to understand what they do or why they do it or why they think the way they do. But also with her saying that it was hard to think of him doing,
Others.
or her abuser, I don't know if it was a guy or a girl, but your abuser doing it to other people. And it's also hard when, for the ones that have been groomed into thinking that you truly love that person, it's almost like a level of betrayal. Like, I know this is horrible wording, but almost feeling cheated on
Yeah,
yourself.
sure.
Like when I found out the first time that there was other people, so all those years, one of the things that you fed me to keep me quiet was that I was the only one and I was special and he loved me and I wasn't used. Well, that shows all of that was a lie and just
Mm-hmm.
solidifies it. So that is also hard to wrap your head around too.
I can imagine. Devney said, "Did you ever try to use the Bible during the abuse? You hear disgusting stories of men twisting scripture to coerce girls, but it sounds like he didn't even try to be a man of God with your relationship, which I can't think would have been any worse. It's all sick." And that's something that Jack Scott did. He would tell his victims probably that God wanted them to be together. So I think what Devney's asking is, did he kind of try to twist God's word or the Bible or your spiritualism? No, it was just straight up whatever.
No, he 100% treated as a relationship.
Okay.
Like I want to be with you. I love you. It was never, even though he used his power in like a backwards way,
Yes.
he never used his power to my face like this is something God wants us to do or this is okay by God. He never did any of that. It was more like I'm your boyfriend
Right.
type thing.
Okay. Sorry, and feel free to stop me if I'm cutting you off as you're answering these. Josh Owens asks, have you had trouble maintaining relationships with people you know who are still into the IFB mentality? Even though it may be well-intentioned, I really struggle with being civil to people who are contributing to the problem, knowingly or unknowingly.
I don't think I personally have, just because the only people that I really still have contact with that are IFB are my grandparents, and they are so beyond supportive. So they don't, and while they may not agree with certain things I do in my life, whether it be like the drinking or whatever that we talked about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
they are not, they're still 100% supportive. And that has, like, They don't sit there and try and preach at me and shove Baptist down my throat. And while they might say in passing, like, we'd love to have you back,
Sure.
like if I go and visit the church, whatever, it's never pushy. And so I don't have any relationships any longer with anyone that is still involved outside of my grandparents, really.
And would you, again, just trying to commentate a little bit on what you're saying, would you say that that's due in part to the fact that you're not getting any kind of guilt factor from them? And there may be others. I'm not saying that others do give you the guilt factor, but that's kind of what we've grown accustomed to.
I just think it's because I think even over the years, I just really separated myself from it. So I feel like there's not really any relationship anymore that I have to feel forced into. I don't like forced relationships or friendships or whatever. So I think I don't want to say that I grew cold to it, but I think I just completely separated myself from it to figure out who the heck am I really outside of who my pastor and parents wanted me to be and told me I was. And that was one of the reasons that I couldn't stand being at Golden State is because
Yeah.
I remember one staff member who is still friends with Cameron. I remember her pulling me into the office one time and crying because she didn't think that I was acting properly and I was supposed to be a pastor's wife. Well, why am I supposed to be a pastor's wife? Like I I felt like you're kind of made to like they almost like pave your path for you of who
Cookie
this
cutter.
person you're supposed to be. So I needed to find out for myself, like, who am I outside of this? Because that's not
Right.
who I want nothing to do with that.
Oh my God, you guys are going too fast for me. I'm getting old, I guess. There was something I wanted to read. Just again, positivity. I want to drum up in here. Bethany says, "I applaud your positive mindset. For me, I don't see how you can give a conscience to someone that lives purely for their wants. I agree. That's a lack of empathy, and doesn't care about the damage that fulfilling them does to their victims. Yeah, it's just there's no empathy there. They don't. It's seared, severed, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't exist for these people at all in any way, shape, or form." Oh. How long have we been doing this? I don't know if I can see on here. Well,
It's 10 to midnight here, so
we're at 3 hours 36 minutes. It's not a brag. It's just I can't believe we've been going this long, which is great. Uh, this is terrific. I can't believe it. I'm just grateful. The two things I'm most grateful for tonight. I just want to share this with you guys, if you don't mind, just briefly. Is number one, Sarah, you coming on and being a help to so many people, answering questions, left and right. Even the ones I skipped over some and thought it's too much, and you're like, you didn't say no, but you're like, oh, I'm going to answer that one. I'm going to answer. Okay, cool. So I'm grateful for that. But also just the fact that we're able to have this discourse and that you guys have been so kind and uplifting in everything that you're saying. The only negative comment was to me about my cursing, which is totally valid. So I'm
my grandmother.
no, I don't blame her. If my grandma were in here, she would say the same thing. I guarantee you. So I'm just grateful that you guys have been so encouraging and uplifting to Sarah in here. We haven't had a single, really a single negative comment. It's all been good vibes, and I'm so grateful that we have this community that we fostered here, that we're able to have this conversation and have it be open and helpful to so many people. And here I go. I'm going to say it. If you guys have more questions, send them, because I don't want us to miss any. But we'll see how it goes. All right, Mike. Cursing and cussing is not the same. Yeah, I do have a potty mouth, John. That's true. You have a potty mouth too. But that's all I got for tonight. I didn't want to be overbearing at all here, Sarah. I wanted you to have, use this platform as you could, and be able to share your story again, and be able to, help people, which I think we've accomplished here tonight.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say? I mean, you fielded a lot of questions. I don't know if anything else is ruminating or something else you want to drop in, but I don't want to leave that off.
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
we covered a lot, and even things that we didn't even think of
Right.
to cover. when
Culottes
preparing.
being one of them.
Right? Mount Salem showers and culottes. Um,
All gross things.
right. No, I think it was, I mean, it was a huge help to me to be able to talk and kind of get my side out there,
Good, I'm glad.
really. I think it helps when people can kind of hear from the person behind these allegations. So,
Here we go. We got a question. And we're not trying to make fun of you, Bethany. Is there any particular way you would like for those of us who do to pray for you? She said. Bethany said. It's a good question.
I would just say to continue to not drown in this, because there are some days where, I mean, it honestly can feel like that. And there's even some strained relationships in my family because of this situation right now. So, but from, by my choice. But so I would say just strength to continue on the fight, because that's what I ultimately want to do.
Awesome.
But I can't say that there's not hard days. So I would say that that's about it.
Okay. Janine's too smart. The stuff she types out, I can't. It's not the alcohol. I can't read half of it because it's full of big words. She just a couple days ago, I think, or yesterday, just graduated from med school. Sharp as a tack. You're too smart for me, dude. All right. Well, I don't want to cut us short, so I'm not going to turn it off this instant. But I'm going to start winding down, mostly because my computer's at 5%. I know Stuart's batteries are always dying. He never plugs in everything. I understand, but such is my life. We will have a new computer here soon, so that'll help. Anyways, Sara, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, for helping so many of us with so many questions and just different things, and for being so open. I don't know. One thing I just thought of this. I don't know. Are you familiar with Brene Brown at all?
No.
Please watch her special on Netflix. It's not really comedy, but she's a pro when it comes to vulnerability, and it's something that I think you've embodied quite perfectly. So that's something that I would encourage everyone. If you don't have Netflix, get it for a month for free, guys. Sara, please check out Brene Brown. It's not Renee, it's Brene. Brene. John Keister actually turned me on to her, and she has a special on Netflix, and it's just it's a beautiful thing. It's just a kind of an all-encompassing thing that I think everyone will enjoy. Anyways,
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not getting paid for that, but I just wanted to let you guys know it's a great thing, and Sara, I think you'd enjoy it. But what I wanted to say from that is that you've embodied vulnerability in just such a great way. So I'm so grateful for that, and for you again taking the time tonight. I can't thank you enough. All right, guys. Yeah, now I'm getting the altar calls. Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling. No, I think Janine. I think it would be potty mouth, because on the East Coast it would be potty mouth. It'd be potty mouth. Anyways, yes, John Bannister, we can pass the plate for Sara Jackson's time and bravery. Absolutely, I think that'd be great. All right, guys. I think I'm going to sign off. Sara, I don't want to keep you up any longer, and also the computer is dying. So thank you again. If you're open to it, and guys, if you want us to do this, I would love to do this again with you sometime. Whether you have an update or just we have some subjects we want to go over, you're more than welcome to come back. We'd love to have you, and this has been a terrific conversation. So I'm super grateful again for that so much. Yeah, I'm pretty lit. Super grateful for that so much. Sorry, what were you saying?
Definitely after September when I can have a drink too.
yes. Congratulations. Very late now, by the way, but congratulations. But yes, definitely that would be, I'm with you there on the September time. All right, guys, and Sara, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
I'm super grateful. You're absolutely welcome. And I can't wait to do this again. Also, I will say just a quick plug, not to steal any of the show here, but we are trying to drop in the next day or two another episode. As crazy as that is, we are trying to, so hopefully in the next day or two you guys will get to see it. It's going to be some really interesting, helpful stuff. Anyways, okay, I'm all done with pitching and everything, and I'm watching the numbers die as I do this. But thank you, Sara, so much. Thank you, everyone in the comments, whether you just joined a little while ago or you've been here this whole time, super grateful for all the support. And we're going to sign off with that. We hope you guys have a great night. To those of you where it's almost morning, we hope you have a great morning.